26-year-old Nicole Hunsinger is suing her former live-in boyfriend, 25-year-old Brian Moss, for rent, an unpaid loan, and a cell phone.
All rise.
Now, this is case number 160 on the calendar in the matter of Hunsinger versus Moss. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated, sir. Have a seat.
Ms. Hunsinger, this used to be your boyfriend. You lived together for a period of time. Your complaint is threefold. First, you say that you made a loan to him a little over a year ago. He needed some money for a lawyer and for some fines. And while he paid you back some, he still owes you money.
Yes, ma'am.
Second, that you ultimately broke up with each other. You moved out of the apartment that you were sharing and both contributing to, with the understanding that Mr. Moss was going to pay the rent. He ended up not paying the rent, and in order to preserve your credit, you paid the rent because you were also on the lease.
Yes, ma'am.
And then some nonsense about a cell phone. I hate these cell phone cases. You know, I think that they ought to abolish the ability of people to get cell phones for other people. If you can afford a cell phone, you get a cell phone. If you can't afford a cell phone, you don't get a cell phone. Aren't there still things on the street where you can put in a quarter and make a phone call?
I'm not sure. It's been so long.
I think that there probably are, or else you wait until you get home, or write a letter, or use a stamp, or something.
I agree.
But if you can't afford a cell phone out there in television land, don't get one, and don't get anybody else one.
I want a copy of this for my kids.
Would you do that?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll get you one.
Thank you.
Anyway, when did you move into this apartment together?
February 13th of '05.
And what was the rent?
$425 a month, everything included.
And your arrangement was that you split the rent?
No, ma'am. We decided to, because I had more bills going out monthly, that he would pay majority of the rent, and I would help him pick up whatever was left of the monthly rent.
So how did you deal with that each month?
Every week, he would get money from his paycheck. He would put it in an envelope in the apartment. When rent was due, whatever money wasn't there to pay the rent in full, I would put in.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So how much did you put in?
I was anywhere from $50 to $100 a month. I was putting into my own money that he was short.
And what were you paying for?
Car loan, insurance, student loans, credit card bills, the cell phones.
Okay. And when did you move out?
I moved out shortly after we broke up on July 1st. I called the landlord, said I was leaving, and told her why.
Why were you leaving?
I found out some stuff that he was doing behind my back, and that did not make me happy. And then we got in an argument. It got heated. I didn't like the situation, so I left.
Did you make any arrangement with him about staying in the apartment, or did you just leave?
I left, and I called the landlord, told her where I was and why I left. She said that if he would agree to go on the lease.
That's hearsay. Now, she left in July.
Yes, ma'am.
When did you leave?
I left in August, I believe.
Think carefully.
I think it was September, October.
Think carefully before you give me an answer.
October, ma'am.
August, September, or October?
October, ma'am.
Mr. Moss, I want you to try not to irritate me, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a very low threshold.
Yes, ma'am.
So you left in October.
Yes.
October what?
Beginning of October, ma'am. I'm not sure what day.
I believe it was the 7th.
7th.
Well, the 7th is into October, so you owed rent for. You left in July, so I assume you paid July's rent.
No, ma'am, I didn't.
Why not?
Because he obviously had paid it because they didn't notify me that he didn't.
Did you pay August's rent?
Yes, ma'am.
September?
Yeah, I believe.
Not
yes,
all of it, ma'am.
Not all of it.
I think you should have stayed with her because she can finish your sentences because you're having these mind lapses.
Yes, ma'am.
How much of October's rent did you pay?
I believe about a little over $200, ma'am.
October.
October, nothing in the beginning.
$425 in October. And how much of September's rent did you pay?
Little over $300, ma'am.
How much?
I ended up having to put in, with his late fees and the remainder of the rent he didn't pay, it was $157.50.
Plus the $425 for October.
Yes, ma'am.
And what about November, December, and January? What did the landlord do with November, December, and January? Do you have an agreement with him?
I have their paperwork right here.
Can I see it, please?
On the second page, it's in bill form what I paid.
All right, Mr. Moss. Now, let's have your defense with regard to this rent, which she paid to the landlord in the amount of $1,275, which covers October, November, and December's rent. Come on. Come.
Well, She ended up moving out in July, leaving me with the rest of the lease, and from what I told the landlord, I figured that since she
Why
left
did she
first-
move out, sir?
We broke up, so she moved.
Why?
Because she wanted to live somewhere else, I guess.
You think so?
Yes, ma'am.
No,
You don't
ma'am.
think that there was any cause for her to leave?
No, we just broke up, and that was it, and she decided to leave.
Well, so it was an amicable breakup, according to you.
It was just pretty much she broke up with me, that was it.
Listen, do you know what the word amicable means?
Yes, ma'am.
Sir. Was it an amicable breakup? Amicable breakup usually means that two people sit down and say, listen, we have this lease, let's see how we can resolve this. You know, I can stay in the apartment and you leave, or you stay in the apartment and I'll leave, and this is the way we're going to resolve the bills, and this is the way we're going to resolve the loan.
What was amicable at first, ma'am?
It was at first. We agreed on some things, and it was.
What did you agree on? Mr. Moss?
Basically, what I agreed on was that I can, for as long as I could, I can, you know, maintain the rent.
No, Mr. Moss, that's not what you said. What do you mean, as long as you could, you would maintain the rent?
I didn't say I was going to do it until the end of the lease, Your Honor.
Where are you living now, sir?
I'm living in another apartment now, in the same town.
With whom?
Myself.
What's the rent?
$320 a month.
So that's a difference of $100 a month in the rent.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you had paid this landlord $320 a month rent, she would have been relieved of the burden of paying the landlord $12.75, right? The
Yes,
landlord
ma'am.
would have come after her for only a few $100s, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So why didn't you do that? It must have cost you something to move.
It cost me quite a bit to move, but
So why did you move?
I couldn't afford to stay there at that time. I had to borrow from friends just to move to another place. But I couldn't borrow enough to actually maintain there, and then I didn't want to just stay there anymore. It was just...
That sounds like a lot of double talk to me, Mr. Moss.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
What did you need a lawyer for, Mr. Moss?
Identity theft.
Whose identity did you steal?
Father's.
Father pressed charges?
Yes, ma'am.
He must have been really angry with you for something else.
He told me his father was dead.
And later today,
You have another phone now, sir?
Yes, I do.
Good. When did you get it? Look at me. When did you get it?
When did I get it? I don't know.
When did you get it? That's a question. I ask the questions, you give me the answer. When did you get the phone?
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Nicole Hunsinger claims ex-boyfriend Brian Moss owes for rent, a cell phone bill, and attorney fees after he was arrested for identity theft.
Okay. Now let's get to the loan. When did you make this loan and for what?
It was for attorney.
What did you need a lawyer for, Mr. Moss?
I had another court case, Your Honor.
What kind of court case, sir?
Criminal court.
For what?
Identity theft.
And
Whose identity did you steal?
Father's.
Your father's.
Yes, ma'am.
How much money did you rack up before they found out?
1,087, ma'am.
Father pressed charges?
Yes, ma'am.
He must have been really angry with you for something else.
I haven't talked to him about 7 years, ma'am.
apparently he told me his father was dead.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Did you receive probation in that case?
No, it was, if I didn't get in trouble for 6 months, it was a sponge.
It was what?
A sponge. It was just gotten rid of.
You had an adjournment in contemplation of dismissal for 6 months?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am.
Did you have to pay restitution?
Yes.
And what was the restitution?
1,087, I believe.
And fines?
No fines.
And how much was the lawyer?
Lawyer was 1,500, and that was it.
And who gave you the money?
Miss Hunsinger.
But the retainer wasn't all the way borrowed.
Shh.
Sorry.
How much did you pay her back?
I paid for the first few of the monthly payments of the lawyer's fee.
How
Actually,
much?
the loan fee. I'm not 100% sure, ma'am. It was like 4 months.
How many months did he pay you back?
He paid for the first 5 months of my loan payments.
And how much were the loan payments?
They were $113.35 a month.
Why did you stop?
Because she had left, I had lost contact with her. She asked for the phone back, and that was it. And I hadn't seen her since then. I only seen her once or twice. Yes, ma'am.
So at this point, Mr. Moss, we are acknowledging the loan
Yes, ma'am.
in the amount now, according to you, of $2,142.
Yes, ma'am.
See what he said about this in his answer. I didn't hear anything. She never said I had to pay her back.
She didn't. I did that on my own record.
He gave me his word.
Okay. So far, Mr. Moss, I find the following, sir. That you had, according to you, an amicable initial breakup.
Yes.
The discussion was, and this is what I find, not what you say,
Yes, ma'am.
that you agreed to stay in the apartment and she was leaving.
Yes.
And if you agreed to stay in the apartment and she was leaving, that means that you agreed to cover the rent. and you didn't. And I have verification from the landlord that you didn't pay the rent, and that she did, and that, as a matter of fact, you moved into another apartment at practically the same rent. So you really could have stayed there and maybe been shy a couple of $100, not the $1,275 that she had to kick in. So I believe that you had an agreement with her to stay there for the duration of the lease. Did you move someplace else?
Yes, ma'am.
Where did you move?
I moved across town with a friend.
You pay rent?
Yes, ma'am.
How much?
$465 split half, so it's for $232.50 a month I pay.
Maybe if you had a friend, Mr. Moss, you could have gotten yourself that kind of situation. In any event, I also find that you owe her for the remainder of this loan that you stopped paying. That's $21.42. Those two figures together are $34.17. Now, I want you to do this cell phone really fast.
I can...
Miss Hunsinger.
Real briefly, yes.
Really fast, because you know how irritated I am with cell phones already?
Yep.
Go ahead.
He's just said that we lost contact and this is why he wasn't giving me money. Well, the last loan payment I paid was August, which was a month after we had broke up. I did receive money for the August payment, so he had the cell phone in order to keep in contact, to make arrangements to get money to pay the bills. And, well, my cell phone bill here of 5,977 minutes.
5,000?
5,977 in one billing cycle. Everything in this that's highlighted orange is a number, a dating service he was calling, and porn numbers on my dime.
What months was he doing that?
From April of 05 to October of 05.
While you were
even
living,
when
while you were living together?
Yes, ma'am. He was calling a dating service when we were together.
Why weren't you getting the bills? It was your phone.
After the first 2 billing cycles of our cell phone bill, they stopped sending a detailed bill. Well, after I allowed him to keep the phone, to keep in contact with me, I got detailed 60-page bill for one bill.
Should have gotten it before, Miss Hunsinger.
Yes, ma'am. I know.
Should have gotten it before, because you're going to deal with that cell phone bill. It's going to make you smarter for the future. Going to make you smarter and stronger.
Mm-hmm. It will. He will. He's going to never again.
Good girl. Who is this?
That's my stepfather.
Looks like a nice man. All right, Mr. Moss, there are no free rides in this world, sir. You owe her $3,417. You're a very lucky girl.
Thank you, ma'am.
Right?
Thank you.
The first mistake that you made was, as soon as you found out that he had stolen his father's identity, you should have packed your suitcase and fled.
I'm aware of that, but he
And
had told me he was dead.
He told you his...
He had told me his father was dead until
And it
he
was
got
okay
charged.
to steal his identity because he was dead?
He came back from the dead and...
Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
You know,
I do.
you have to hire a lawyer, and in order to get an adjournment and contemplation of dismissal, unless the DA is not playing with a full deck, which is an ACD, which is what he got, he has to plead guilty. He has to say, I did something wrong, which he sort of acknowledges, that he stole his father's identity. And you had to know that in your soul, right? How old are you?
I'm 26.
26. And you?
25, ma'am.
Was this your first arrest, sir?
No.
Got it? Kiss the ground. Look up to God and say, thank you, God. Before I got further involved with him, before I made a baby with him, before he took everything that I have for now and the future, move on.
Yes, ma'am.
Kiss
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I just think it's wrong, but, I mean, there's nothing else I can do about it, so.
A slime. That's all I can say. He's a liar.
It was just funny because everything was a gift until we broke up.
Nope. Not a gift. He knew they were loans, and he agreed to pay him back.
Basically, she was trying to hold everything that we ever had together over my head, and I just couldn't take it anymore.
He's a liar. He's a criminal. He's a liar.
Pretty much, we just didn't see eye to eye on so many things.
I won't trust again. It's going to take a long time.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Candler versus Velasio. Step forward, please.
21-year-old Jamie Candler is suing her best friend's ex-boyfriend, Jose Velasio, for cell phone bills and a disconnection fee.
Miss Chandler, Mr. Velasio was the boyfriend of your girlfriend.
Yes.
They are no longer in love.
No.
Are you the girlfriend? And who is this?
It's the ex. That's the girlfriend.
I could have told you that. But while they were a couple, you decided to be a good sport and get Mr. Velasio a cell phone, because he couldn't get one on his own, with the understanding that he was going to take care of the bill. So far, is that about right?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
And then there was a fight between Mr. Velasio and his girlfriend.
Correct.
Yes.
That would be you. And it is your claim that he stopped paying the bill and ran up a bill, hundreds of dollars, and you want him to pay it.
Correct.
Mr. Velasco says he paid the bill when he had the phone. You shut off the phone for no valid reason other than the fact that
When we broke up.
they weren't together anymore.
Correct.
Right? And he's not paying for a phone that he had no use of. When was the phone turned on?
It was turned on in February of 05,
And when was it turned off?
January of 06.
That's when she turned it off, Your Honor, because I stopped using it about September, October. That's when I got my new girlfriend. And when they found out...
September of 05.
Yeah.
You stopped using the phone.
Well, that's when she turned it off because they found out that I had a new girlfriend.
Well, what I'm asking you is, when was the phone no longer in use?
I'm not sure when he stopped using it, but he asked me to suspend the account so no more further charges could be added to it, and that was done on January 11th. And on January 29th, they suspended the account completely because there was no payments on the account, and it ran up over $1,000.
Let me see the bill, and let me see the phone calls that were made and when. Did you have the phone, sir, in January?
I had the phone, but the service was restricted.
I have calls on this phone from January 11th until February 6th. Who made those calls?
No, I didn't, Your Honor. As far as I know, they probably reported it stolen. They got a phone.
Whose number is 90900? Is an incoming call. Whose number is that?
His new girlfriend.
Is that your number?
That's my work number.
That's your work number?
Yes.
Then you had the phone, sir. Why would she be calling a friend of theirs? That would be pretty stupid, Mr. Velasco. Okay. We have incoming calls from your work. We have incoming. You wouldn't call somebody just to harass them, would you?
No.
No, of course not. 4900, 1, 2, 3, 4. I didn't ask you to sit up.
Oh, sorry.
Whose number is 9053 in San Bernardino?
I have no idea.
Who lives in Ontario?
I don't know. Nobody in Ontario.
Well, maybe she does. Do you know whose number is 9026?
That's her home number.
Her home number?
Yes.
Maybe she called her. I don't know.
No, it says number called.
Was
Why would
not
I want to
called.
call her?
He called to speak to my daughter.
That's not true.
You have your own cellular phone?
Yes.
Is it all off now? Shut down?
Yes.
There shouldn't be any calls on this between January and February.
When I called and spoke to the person on Singular, they told me that they canceled the phone due to no payments being made on the account. They said it was canceled on January 29th.
Well, there were calls here up through, well, this is a February bill, January 11th. You have another phone now, sir?
Yes, I do.
Good. When did you get it? Look at me. When did you get it?
When did I get it? I don't know.
When did you get it? That's a question. I ask the
February.
questions, you give me the answer. When did you get the phone?
In January. Then
January. That's what I
February.
thought. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,032. Get out.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
28-year-old Steve Libera is suing his ex-girlfriend, 19-year-old Amy Warren, for the cost of a trip to Key West. Amy says Steve wants her to pay for the whole trip.
Order. All rise.
Now, this is case number 245 on calendar in the matter of Libera versus Warren. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated, sirs. Have a seat.
Mr. Libera, the defendant is your former girlfriend.
That's right, Your
Your
Honor.
complaint alleges that you went on a trip with her. She was supposed to pay for the trip. She did, in fact, pay for most of the trip. She paid for the airfare, correct?
Yes.
She paid for the hotel.
Yes, Your Honor, that's correct.
But there were certain incidentals. And for some reason, she couldn't use her credit card. She, according to you, asked you if you would pay for those incidentals. You did, with the understanding that she would pay you back. She did not pay you back.
That's right.
And you want the incidentals paid. You want a totally free vacation.
Yes, Your Honor, that's what...
You want a totally free vacation.
Yes, Your Honor, I do.
You must be very entertaining, Mr. Libera. The defendant, on the other hand, says she paid for most of the vacation. Those incidentals were yours, and she never made an agreement to pay you back for those incidentals. She paid for, I don't know, 3/4 of the vacation, quarter is yours, and you weren't that much fun. You didn't say that. I just threw that in to make you feel better. Now, you have a counterclaim. Your counterclaim says that he stole property from your apartment.
Yes.
Items that didn't belong to him. So you're going to tell me about that. All right, when did you take this vacation, Mr. Libera?
We took it July 4th through the 7th, I believe, or the 3rd through the 7th.
And where did you go?
We went to Key West.
How long had you and Miss Warren been together?
Not very long, a month or two, something like that, Your Honor.
Okay, so tell me how it came about, sir, that Miss Warren was paying for this vacation.
Well, Amy Warren...
No, just listen to me. Put the papers down, and I want you to look at me. Focus on me, Mr. Libera.
All right. Amy, when I first met her, she presented herself as an heiress to this huge, like, medical conglomerate fortune. She said she had a multi-million-dollar trust fund, and pretty much from the beginning of our relationship, it was like she was going to pamper me, and I felt like I had won the lottery or something. And the trip was her idea. She said that she wanted to take me down there. She was going to pay for the trip, and that's why the trip was to be free. Actually, she said that her dad was going to pay for it, in fact. She booked it in advance. She went through Expedia, paid for the airfare, the hotel.
How much was the airfare?
Over $3,000.
For both of you?
Right, that's right.
And did you stay in a nice hotel?
Yes, we stayed at the Hyatt, Your Honor.
Did you have a nice room?
Absolutely.
How much was the hotel?
The entire trip totaled $22.86.
$22.86 for the hotel?
For the hotel, airfare, it was all included.
That's not true, Your Honor.
Oh, so you mean it was more?
Yes.
You think it was more? That's not helping you particularly,
Well,
Mr. Libera. But if you
no,
want to
it's
tell
just-
me it was
well-
more, if you want to tell me it was more than $22.86, I buy it. Is it more? How much more?
Just the airfare and hotel alone was over $3,000, and I got that information from a man named John from Expedia.
Fine. So you're saying it was $3,000?
Right. I don't think she's lying. I mean, it's just one more lie among many.
I'm going to forget that you said that for a moment because I'm sure you're not going to do that again, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
And how much did you spend on the incidentals, Mr. Libera?
$716. Well, that was for the hotel. That was for the incidentals at the hotel, and I have a list of other expenses.
Incidentals at the hotel?
Right.
Not the room, but just the incidentals at the hotel?
Right. Meals, jet ski rentals, stuff like that. And then I have a list of other expenses that were incurred during the trip. Once we got there, she claimed that her credit card wouldn't work. So I paid for the expenses when we were out on the town and stuff like that. And once again, she promised that she would pay me this back.
Well, tell me what she said to you.
Well, originally she said that her credit card didn't work and it was a big problem. She's like, what are we going to do? And I told her, I said, I will pay for the stuff while we're here as long as you pay me back. And she said, absolutely. When we get back, I'll get a check from my dad. And so from that point on, you know, we did whatever we wanted to do. And it was always agreed that she would pay me back.
Okay. Is that what happened, Ms. Warren?
No, Your Honor.
Tell me what happened.
I never agreed. He should have paid half the trip. The trip was not over $3,000. It was $22.86. And he did not pay for half the stuff on the strip.
He says that you told him that you would pay back the expenses that were put on the credit card. Did you tell him that?
No, Your Honor.
How did it come about that he used his credit card for the incidentals?
Because that was like part of the mutual decision. He should have paid like half the trip.
Not should have. It's not what I asked you. Did your credit card for some reason not work?
I put it on there for the incidentals. He finished paying it when we checked out.
Tell me how it happened. You're standing at the desk. You're checking out. Tell me exactly, Miss Warren, what happened.
Steven told me that he was going to put it on his credit card, and he didn't have a problem with that. It was his debit card, and it was on my credit card. So they didn't run my credit card, they ran his, rather. Although they had the authorization for mine, but they took it out on his.
Why?
Because I shouldn't have to pay for the incidentals and the entire...
Is that what he told you?
Yes.
That's what he told you?
Yes.
No, I don't believe that, Miss Warren. I mean, I think that you're foolish for taking him on a vacation, quite frankly. But I don't believe for a second that Mr. Libera, who does not appear to be an unintelligent man, knowing that he could very easily fall in my mouth, which is, for some people, the second worst fate, the first being circumcision, why he would come here and lie to me about that and pursue a lawsuit against you. I don't understand that. Especially when he knows it makes him look like a scuzz. You know, some woman taking him away on vacation and, you know, the couple of incidental dinners after he got flown there and he got a hotel, why he would humiliate himself to come here unless he really thought he was right. You wouldn't do that, would you, sir?
Absolutely not, Your Honor.
I didn't think so.
I've got witnesses here, too, that we talked about this after the trip was over. We discussed how much money that she owed me and she was going to pay me back, and she acknowledged, and they were present for it. There was no question that she owed me this money.
Tell me your name.
David Morrow.
How do you know these people?
I'm mutual friends with both of them.
Okay, so tell me what you heard her say to him about the incidentals from this trip.
She was always insistent that she would pay him back.
No, don't tell me what you... Tell me what you heard.
I heard her on the phone with him and with her father stating that she would actually get a check for the incidentals and pay them.
Now, you heard him on the phone with her.
Mm-hmm.
If she's talking to him on the telephone,
Yes,
sir, I don't believe that you're listening in on this telephone. I want to hear what you heard her say.
Okay. In her apartment, I heard her tell him that she would get on the phone and get the money as soon as possible to pay him back because he needed the money.
Okay. But you didn't hear her say how much?
No.
Good. And you are?
Freddie Coffee. and I'm a mutual friend of both. I actually met Amy a couple days before I met Steve.
Okay, go ahead.
My girlfriend and I went out to dinner with them, and Amy did actually say that she was going to wire transfer $2,000 into Steve's account to cover the expenses for the incidentals, to cover the overdraft fees that happened on his account because of those expenses, and to also for paint and things like that that we used to when she moved into her apartment to help her out and move into her apartment.
So she was going to wire $2,000 in to cover various things, including incidentals.
Yes, Your Honor.
Stuff that was purchased for the apartment. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Very good. But you didn't hear a specific amount that she said. Put your hand down, sir. I asked you the question. I asked it twice. Got it? You didn't hear her indicate the specific amount of that $2,000 that was allocated towards the incidentals.
No, not allocated towards the incidentals.
Perfect. Sit down. $716. Incidentals. Of course, you're not totally a scuzzy, are you? No. Good.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
He told me he stole everything out of my apartment. Sure enough, he did. Food, trash can, shower curtain, everything was gone. So he admitted to me.
And later today.
So you said some vile things to Miss Atkins. And who kicked you out of the party?
I guess it was the owner of the house.
Did that make you feel better?
Not really.
Steve Libera claims ex-girlfriend Amy Warren owes for a trip to the Florida Keys. Amy is countersuing, claiming Steve stole over $10,000 worth of property from her home.
Now let me hear, Miss Warren, about what you claim he stole from the apartment, and what proof do you have that he stole anything from the apartment?
I have the police report showing that he did steal stuff from my apartment the day.
Let me see.
And
what
then
day?
I have...
What day are we talking about?
July 28th.
Did you share this apartment together?
No.
So he came to your apartment? How did he
Yes.
get into your apartment?
Whenever he took my debit card, which I have those papers as well, and used that, he took a key off my key ring and got into my apartment and stole everything. Then he told me when I dropped him off at the courthouse, because he had to pay his fines for his probation or whatever he's on.
What kind of probation? It's not an answer.
DUI, Your Honor.
Why are you asking me a question, sir?
I didn't ask you a question, Your Honor.
You gave me an and then you said
No,
DUI?
No, I'm sorry. DUI is what I was on probation for. And she's lying about everything. The debit card she gave me to buy gas because I had no money in my account because she was having trouble getting me the money that she owed me. And I actually picked that up from her work.
There is nothing in here, madam, that indicates that he stole anything from your property.
That's the police report they gave me whenever I got the subpoena. That's what they
I'm just telling you,
released.
there's nothing in here that says that he did that, and you don't have a witness that saw him take any property from your
Right,
home.
because whenever I dropped him off at the courthouse, I didn't think I needed a witness. Then he told me he stole everything out of my apartment. Sure enough, he did. Food, trash can, shower curtain, everything was gone. So he admitted to me.
Mr. Libera, did you ever tell Miss Warren that you stole property out of her
No, I
apartment?
didn't.
Miss Warren, you have to give him $716. That's what you owe him for the incidentals, because I believe that he paid the incidentals and put it on his credit card because yours wasn't working when you went to check out for the incidentals in the hotel. I don't, however, believe, Mr. Libera, that she, each time you used your credit card to pay for a dinner or to pay, I'm speaking,
Yes.
or to pay for something, that she said to you, thank you very much for dinner, I'll pay you back as soon as we get home. I don't believe that happened, Mr. Libera. And if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Just consider this. You got most of a vacation paid for, and you had a really good time.
There's more to the story here.
Listen to me. Is there more to the story that you want me to hear, sir? Because I've already decided to rule in your favor. So is what you want, Mr. Libera, you want to try to change my mind?
No, I don't, Your Honor. Absolutely not.
Good. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Counterclaim is dismissed.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
He stole my dignity, my love, my honesty, everything I had.
She bragged about to people that she was paying for everything. She was real proud of herself.
He's just trying to get me back for even more.
Don't trust girls.
Oh, life experience. Oh my gosh, I never want to experience it again.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Atkins versus Penhollow. Step forward, please.
21-year-old Shanna Atkins is suing her ex-boyfriend, 22-year-old Andrew Penhollow, for intentionally denting the side of her car. Shanna claims Andrew was angry over their breakup.
Miss Atkins, this young man used to be your boyfriend. I assume he's not your boyfriend anymore. Is that right?
That's right.
You had an argument and claimed that after the argument he was a little intoxicated and damaged your car. You want him to pay for the car's repairs. Mr. Penhollow says that he was in fact angry at you at some point, but there was no way that he damaged your car. When was the vandalism to your car noticed by you?
It was May 5th. It was Cinco de Mayo. And it was right after I came outside. He was outside, wouldn't leave until I came to talk to him.
Okay, where did this happen?
At a friend's house in Everett, Washington.
Were you still dating on May 5th?
No, this was like a month after we had broken up.
Now, I gather from your complaint that you were at the friend's house for a party.
Yes.
He was not invited.
No.
So
That's not true.
how many people were at the party?
Roughly 20 to 30.
And what time did you arrive there?
About 9:30.
In the evening?
Yes.
What kind of car do you have?
2006 Scion TC.
Where did you park it?
It was on the street right outside of his house. He doesn't have a driveway.
But it was parked on the street. How far from the house?
Right in front of it.
Did the car have any damage when you parked it?
No, brand new. I just had gotten it a couple months earlier.
Okay. Now, at 9:30 when you got to the party, Mr. Penhallow was not there.
Correct.
When did you arrive, sir?
It was a little after 2 in the morning.
And where had you been just prior to that?
I was at a bar a little south of where she was.
What time did you get to the bar?
I was at the bar at like 10 o'clock.
So from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. you were drinking?
Yes.
Now, I'd like you to tell me, Mr. Penhallow, how it came about that at 2 o'clock in the morning you went over to the party, because that you acknowledge in your answer, that you went over to the party.
Yes, I definitely went over to the party.
How did you get there, sir? What prompted you to go over there? And I'd like you to look at me.
Okay.
Not at the sky. The sky will not give you any answers, sir.
All right. What happened was I found out from a mutual friend of ours, who is no longer a mutual friend, but that she had cheated on me when we were together.
That's...
And
Shh. And you found that out on May 5th?
yes.
That night while you were drinking?
Yes.
At the bar?
Yes.
Okay, so somebody told you that?
Yes.
Okay, go
and
ahead.
Of course, that got me angered. Tried to call her.
What'd you try to call her for? You weren't together, according to you, for a couple of weeks, according to her, for a month.
We were still friends, though. We were talking about almost every day. And so I found out where the party was, because I was invited earlier that night, until I had said something earlier when we talked to make her mad.
Well, what did you say?
I don't know. Some smart aleck comment.
Do you remember?
He called just belligerent, just angry, for no apparent reason. He had done this many times
You
before.
mean he called before 10 o'clock that night, before he left?
I don't know if it was before 10 o'clock. I think it was after I had been there for a couple hours. And
So he called you from the bar?
From his cell phone. I didn't
From
know
his
he
cell
was
phone.
at
Well,
a
he was
bar.
at the bar
Yeah.
from 10 to 2. You got to the party at 9:30, so in
Yeah.
all probability he was drinking and commiserating with himself about how badly he felt that you were no longer together. So, Mr. Penhallow, now we have a situation where somebody has told you something that upset you about Miss Atkins.
Yes.
And you wanted to go over and confront her.
Of course.
And you did go, well, not of course.
Well, yeah. I
Not
found
of
this,
course.
I found this news out, and I wanted it settled. So.
Why?
Why?
You think that it's a smart idea to settle a dispute, sir, at 2 o'clock in the morning after you've been drinking for 4 hours? You think that that's intelligent? Huh? You think that that's the optimum time to settle something and clear the air?
At the time.
Well, at the time, because your judgment is clouded because you were drinking for 4 hours, sir.
Possibly.
Not possibly. I mean, don't be foolish.
Yeah.
Good. That's what I like to hear. So now you go over to the party, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
And when you got there, what happened, Mr. Penhallow?
Well, I found out that she was downstairs. I walked in, went downstairs, said some pretty mean things.
Said some mean things?
Yes.
Now, were those things that you would ordinarily have said had you not been drinking?
Yeah, probably. I was
So
that
you-
mad.
So that you were angry as usual, but clouded judgment impaired by alcohol?
Yes. So, I ended up getting kicked out of the party.
Okay, so you said some vile things to
Yeah.
Miss Atkins
Uh-huh.
in front of her friends, and who kicked you out of the party?
I guess it was the owner of the house. I don't know.
Did that make you feel better?
Not really.
Well, let me just a second. So now you're not feeling better than you were when you arrived because you didn't get it all out of your system because you got kicked out of the party.
Yeah.
Who went over with you to the party?
No.
Oh, is not an answer.
No one.
And how did you get there?
I took my roommate's car.
So you drove drunk?
Yes.
Okay. Did your roommate give you permission to take his car?
She did.
She did?
Yeah.
Where was she? Was she also drinking with you at the bar?
Yes.
And you said, give me the keys to your car, and she said, okay.
Yes.
Another genius.
Hmm.
So where did you go, sir?
Where did I go? I went to the party.
And then you got kicked out. And
Yeah.
what happened?
I got kicked out, and I was outside. And
What were you doing outside?
I was waiting because I was talking to the person on the other side of the fence because I wanted to talk to her. And so they finally came out, and I left.
Who finally came out?
She did, and she was all upset, and they're like, we don't want to talk to you. We don't, you know. So I just basically gave them the finger and left.
Now, do you have photographs of your car?
Yes.
I'd like to see them. Do you have any witnesses who saw him around your car?
Yes. My friend
That would be
Christian.
this gentleman's right over here. Step up, sir. Tell me your name.
My name is Krishnil Lingam.
You were at the party that night?
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, tell me what you saw.
Well, as I got out of the house, I went outside, and then I looked outside, and he was across the fence, and then he told me to call Shanna outside, and then told me that he damaged her car.
He told you?
Yeah.
What did he say?
He said that I put a dent on her car.
Okay. Who do you think dented her car, Mr. Penhollow?
I have no idea.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Penhollow?
I'm a barista.
A what?
A barista.
What is that?
Coffee. I make coffee.
Is that what they call it, a barista?
So I understand.
What?
So I understand.
Did you know that before? A barista?
Yeah. I do crosswords.
Hmm?
I do crosswords.
I know.
Remember?
Do you want to be anything other than a barista, sir, when you grow up?
I want to actually own my own coffee shop.
Good. Coffee is better than booze, right?
It is.
Judged for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,575. Thank you very much. You may step out.
Parties are excused.
Christine Paget is suing her ex-boyfriend, Owen Plaster, for the return of money paid toward his rent and bills. Owen says Christine is not entitled to the money in question.
All rise.
Now it's case number 77 on the calendar in the matter of Paget versus Plaster. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Ms. Paget, how long were you and Mr. Plaster involved in a relationship?
About 8 years.
And for what period of those 8 years did you live together?
We lived together most of them, but because of our work, we traveled a lot. So a lot of times I was in New York, but we shared the house in Phoenix.
Okay. When was the house in Phoenix purchased?
1997.
And you were living together at the time?
Yes.
Did you move into the house together?
Yes.
House was in your name?
Yes.
And both of you were working?
Yes.
So finances were not an issue when you lived together?
No.
All right. This is your case, Ms. Paget. After this on-again, off-again relationship, it was on for 8 years, and then it was off for a while. And then the two of you, according to what I read, tried to rekindle the relationship, and you had sold the house.
Yes.
And Mr. Plaster took an apartment. According to you, you didn't want to be bothered with paying half of the rent monthly, so that you prepaid the entire year or 14 months lease to Mr. Plaster so that you didn't have to be bothered.
Exactly.
And shortly after you gave him this check, Mr. Plaster advised you that he had somebody else and he wanted you out.
Yes.
So you want that money back.
Correct.
Mr. Plaster says that that money was not for half the rent. Mr. Plaster says that the two of you had an agreement during the time that you moved into this house together, that he contributed to the house, including the mortgage payment while he was living there, something that you agree with, and that you had an agreement that when the house was sold, you would split whatever increased equity there was during the time that you were living together, since he was, in fact, reducing the mortgage with his mortgage payment and paying half the bills on the house, so that what you were really doing when you gave him this check was keeping your promise to give him some of the equity in the house. That's your defense.
Yes.
And you have a counterclaim because you say that when she did move out, she did some vandalizing in the house and took some property that was actually yours. You want that property back, and you want some compensation for the vandalism. In 1997, Ms. Paget, when you purchased the house, what did you purchase the house for? You remember the purchase?
$108,000.
And what did you sell it for?
I sold it for $236,000.
When did you sell it?
October 2005.
And when did you give Mr. Plaster this check for the rent?
Well, actually, it was bank transfers from my bank account into his bank account. When we decided to rent this apartment, and
just tell me, what date did you give him the check?
I deposited money on 10/11
05
for $6,000, and then on 10/24 for another $1,000.
Also in October of 2005. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, I assume that when you lived together for these 8 years, you had some sort of a discussion about what was going to happen with the equity in the house.
Absolutely.
And what was the discussion?
Exactly right, as you said. However, the important part of that story that was left out was that he moved out of the house in January 2005. Had he stayed with me till October 2005, I probably would have honored that agreement. But at the time when he moved out to move in with a friend of his, I asked him, because he was already living in another bedroom, and I had asked him to please stay on as a roommate, help me sell the house. I didn't have a job at the time. You know, you're putting me in dire straits if you move out. Stay with me. Let's get the house sold. Your daughter's getting married. We can take care of this. I said, if you leave, you're not getting nothing because you're leaving me in dire straits and I have to maintain the residence for 10 months until I sold it by myself with no job. I had to get roommates to help me, you know, organize.
Well, I understand your problem, Ms. Paget. However, you cannot unilaterally change a contract, which is what you told me you had. You had a contract with Mr. Plaster that seems perfectly reasonable to me, that since the two of you had a financial arrangement where each of you was contributing to this household and reducing the mortgage, you were living together as a family, it is perfectly reasonable to have had the contract that you acknowledged that you had, that when and if the house was sold, you would give him, because he had been paying into the house, a portion of the profit from the house.
Yes.
Perfectly reasonable.
Yes.
Now, the fact that he decided to move out and you said to him, if you move out, I'm not going to honor that contract, doesn't mean that that happens. Unless he says, well, fine, I'm moving out anyway, and I agree that you don't have to honor the contract. But that's not what happened.
That is what happened.
No. No, that's not what you told me.
No, that
you
is what
told me.
happened.
Now, listen to me. What you told me was you said to him, if you move out,
right,
I'm not going to honor our agreement.
And he agreed.
No,
and
you said he moved out anyway.
Right.
Well, that's not agreeing with you, madam. He just left. That's not saying I agree that you don't have to honor the contract. He just says, I'm leaving anyway. So while he does not have a counterclaim for that, I am finding that the money that you gave him was for the contract that you had with him for the 8 years that you lived together in this house that you sold, and that you sold for a substantial profit. You more than doubled your money. He paid down the mortgage, and he should be entitled to a portion of that. So, has he sued you on the contract that you had to give him half the profits of the house?
No.
Well, he should.
Because it was agreed that we didn't.
No. Listen to me. I don't believe that at all. And I'm telling you that if he doesn't sue you for half the profits on the house, consider yourself really lucky that I'm speaking. Consider yourself, Miss Paget, really lucky. Because if he sued you in a court where I was sitting, that had a much higher jurisdiction than the $5,000 I have, I would find that you had a contract with him that he fulfilled by contributing to the house for the 8 years that you lived together, and that you cannot unilaterally breach that contract because you didn't want him to leave and leave you in the lurch for 10 months. I might do something equitable, like cutting 10 months' worth of the mortgage payments out and carving that out of his share of the profits. But I'm telling you right now, for the $6,000 that you gave him, you got away with a bargain. I wouldn't complain. Now I'm going to hear your counterclaim. Go ahead.
This is a case of a woman scorn.
Listen, don't tell me what it's about, sir. Don't tell me what a case is about, sir. I'm asking you whether you have a legitimate counterclaim that you want me to hear, or whether you just want to forget it.
Well, once I let her know that I was seeing someone else, she came to get her things, and I gave her a few days in the apartment to get her stuff out. And when I returned, I've got photographs of the vandalism.
I'd like to see the photographs, Bert, please.
And I've got lots of notes that were left and taped on the walls, just crazy things all over the place. Doors were written on, mirrors were written on, photographs stapled to the walls, photographs torn up, my guitars and other property just thrown everywhere. All of my things that were in boxes were dumped in bathtubs and in closet floors, along with half-eaten hamburgers and just
She was
trash.
very angry.
She was very angry.
How much did it cost you to clean it up?
It was very difficult to clean it up.
My question was, I saw the picture, sir. How much did it cost you to clean up the apartment?
Nothing, just my own time.
So it took your time. Show these photographs to the plaintiff, please. Mr. Plaster, just for my own information, sir, why did you allow Miss Paget to move her things into the apartment if you were seeing someone else?
I started seeing someone else after her things were in the apartment.
Not before.
Correct. We moved into the apartment, but she moved to New Jersey, so she only stayed a few days in the apartment at all.
Well, she was sort of hoping that things would work out between you, I assume, which is why she moved her things into the apartment. She didn't move into the apartment for storage purposes. Why'd you trash the apartment?
Because he just didn't face me. And I just would like to say something about the mortgage. He did not contribute to the mortgage every month.
Miss Padgett.
He didn't.
Padgett, I got the information from the two of you before I started to hear your case. And that was the two of you lived together peacefully for 8 years. You seem like an intelligent woman. You both worked. According to the both of you, each of you contributed to the running of the household, and that money was never an issue. And being an intelligent woman, myself, I have to assume that if he wasn't paying his fair share of the house, you wouldn't have kept him around for 8 years. What I'm telling you is the law says just because you say the agreement is over doesn't make it over.
But he moved out.
I don't care whether he moved out. Miss Padgett, I'm going to try one more time, and then I'm not going to hear any more from you. Let us say he wasn't ready to move out of the house, but you were ready to sell it. Do you think you could have sold the house without his permission?
Absolutely.
Of course, because the house is in your name.
Correct.
He's not a slave. He can move if he wants to. That doesn't mean that when you sell the house, he's not entitled to, up until the time he moved out, a portion of the increase in the value of the house, because that was your agreement. Now, you have no right to do what you did here, and he has to be compensated for that, even his time.
I paid for the security deposit on the apartment and all the first month's rent.
No, just a second. In addition to the $6,000 that you gave him, you wrote a check right out to the landlord?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
How much?
Well, the monthly rent was $1,100 and something a month.
So it was at least $1,100.
So it was at least $1,100
okay,
plus
now
security deposit was...
Shh. Is that in addition to the $6,000?
Yes.
Well, then, sir, you can use that $1,100, but you're going to get back to clean up the apartment. Do you understand?
Yes.
Good. Thank you very much. It's over. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
He wouldn't face me.
She had moved to New York.
Just talk to me in person.
You know, I was in a new relationship.
He did it via email.
And I let her know.
It was very sad. I felt like I was put out with the trash.
And it is sad, and I wish it could have worked out some other way.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Compton versus Klein. Step forward.
Michelle Compton is suing her former roommate, 21-year-old Jamie Klein, for damaging her car when she backed out of their driveway.
This is the boyfriend.
Yes.
You used to be the roommate of the defendant, is that right?
Yes.
And these two people were roommates while you and your boyfriend were together?
Yes.
Was there anybody else living in the apartment? Or just the two of you?
Just us two.
The two of you?
Yep.
Did you ever live there?
No.
Did you stay there?
Yes, I did.
How frequently?
I would stay probably the whole month, other than 2 or 3 nights. I'd go spend the night at my mom's or my friend's.
So you were there full time?
Yes.
From when to when?
From when Adam told me he got the house with Jamie, and then from the day we left.
Well, give me the dates. I don't know that. I don't have a crystal ball.
September 1st to, I think, March 18th, May 18th, something like that.
So you were there all that time?
Yes.
How did you split the bills?
When moving in, I worked at Meijer, and I only made about $105 a week, and I had other bills to pay. And I told Adam that I don't have any money to pay any bills, and that if he does want me to stay with him, he knows that he is paying it, and he said that's
Miss
fine.
Klein,
Yeah.
how did you split the rent?
Well, we first on the agreement was just me and Adam, and then when he said she was moving in, I even asked her. I said, well, we need to split it. Well, I'm working at Myers right now.
She did not ask me that.
Don't speak.
She said...
Just a minute. Just ask me. You split it 2 ways?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She has a counterclaim that I'll get to in a minute. Okay. It is your claim that Miss Klein damaged your car while backing out of the driveway.
Yep.
And you want her to pay for the damage to your car.
Yes,
That's
I
what
do.
your lawsuit is about, $1,700. Miss Klein says you shouldn't have blocked her car, and that was your habit. So she nicked it a little bit, and she's sorry, right? You can't hit her car.
You're right, but I went up there and asked her 3 times to move her car. She
What
didn't
date
come-
was that?
I do believe it was the 16th of
Of what?
Of March.
So right before you all went your own way.
Yep.
Why didn't you move the car?
She did not ask me to move the car. Adam asked me if I would clean the room while he's at work, so I was in the room cleaning with the music on. And she never entered the room and asked me to move my car.
And I knocked on the door.
No, she
Every
did not.
time. and said, I need to go take kids to school. I need you to move your car. She didn't come out of the room.
Who were you going to take to school?
I have a daycare, so I had to take the kids to school.
So she didn't move the car, so you hit it.
Yep, well, I tried backing out myself, and then I hit it, and then I went upstairs, and I told her about it, and I said, I gotta go take kids to school, so when I come back, I'll give you my insurance. I come back, and she's gone. So then I go back to work. About 20 minutes later, I come back to see if she's there, and the police are there. So she left and came back, and then I gave her all my insurance and all that stuff.
So what happened with the insurance?
I called my dad and asked him. He called the insurance agency, and they said because it was on private property that they will not do anything.
Well, that's not true. That's baloney. Let me see a letter from the insurance company.
I didn't get one, Your Honor.
Well, you should have one, my dear. You can't rely on your dad. Shouldn't have blocked her.
The car was not blocked.
Well, clearly, it was more difficult to get out.
That's not true. That's not right.
Well, if she hit your car, she of necessity had to hit your car with her car.
She did it on purpose.
Listen to me! When my mouth starts to move, yours doesn't.
Okay.
Nobody with half a brain uses their own car, which might very well be damaged if she hit her car
I have
with
pictures
your
of
car.
my car.
That's just stupid, and she's not stupid. The only thing she was stupid about is letting you live in this apartment for all those months rent-free and splitting the rent because you didn't have a job that paid you enough. You didn't have a job that paid you enough to pay rent, live at home. And if your boyfriend wanted to sleep with you, then he should have paid 2/3 and she paid 1/3. You got it?
Got it.
She doesn't have to pay for you the pleasure that you had to spending the night with her.
She had people spend the night also, Your Honor. It
We're
wasn't
not
just me
talking
over.
about spending the night. We're talking about...
She would have boys come and stay for months at a time.
Listen to me. We're not talking about spending the night. We're talking about living there. So, what you have to do is you have to call her insurance company. She's already acknowledged she hit your car. She had no right to hit your car, and our insurance company will pay for it. Easy. Now, let's get to your counterclaim. Unpaid rent. You had no agreement with her to pay rent. Forget the rent, okay? Bills. You should have had an agreement. You didn't have an agreement. Damage to and return of value of property. Now I'll hear that. Go.
Okay. I have some letters from some witnesses on some of these
I
things.
don't take letters from... listen to me. I don't take letters from witnesses. That's hearsay.
Okay. What she did couple times, she's hid my keys. So he had to take me to work one morning because my keys just came up missing, even though I put them on the table every day. When they moved out, I cleaned my whole house top to bottom, and I couldn't find them. Moved all my furniture, they're gone. And my contact case, one morning I woke up and I stuck my contact in my eye. It had alcohol in my contact case. So I had to go and order new contacts because my contacts were ruined because they were soaking alcohol. I got the police report on that. And then also, the day that they moved out, I went to the bank, came back, took my class ring and my ring off, put it on a little jewelry box that I have in the closet, and I come back about 2 or 3 hours later and it's gone. Them two are the only ones in the house. And I asked her, she didn't know what I was talking about. Well, my rings were there when I left. I come back and they're gone.
And how many people were in the house while you were gone?
When I left, it was just her and Adam.
Well, how do you know that there weren't other people?
Because my
I'm
boyfriend...
speaking. How do you know that there weren't other people in the house moving them out?
Because my boyfriend was there for
so your
about
boyfriend,
half an
just
hour.
a second. So your boyfriend was there?
For just a few minutes after I left.
So your boyfriend was there?
Yeah.
Who was with your boyfriend?
Nobody.
So now we know of 3 people that were in the house when you weren't there, right?
Right.
But your boyfriend was there, maybe with other people. Never works out when 2 people live together and there are boyfriends and girlfriends. You damaged her car. You have to take responsibility for that. You have full insurance on your car, and you've given her your insurance? Fine. You have to use that.
Okay.
She has acknowledged responsibility, hitting your car. It was a stationary vehicle. There's no question of fault. Her insurance company has to pay for it. And if they don't, and you have proof that for some reason they decline coverage, well, you can come back. But before you come to court just to get even a little bit, what you have to do is you have to go through the procedure so that you don't bother the judge. Do you understand? Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Eleanor Dawson is suing the mother of her granddaughter's friend, Yolanda Paul, for the cost to fix her car. Eleanor says Yolanda's son, 17-year-old Ajon Hart, drove it without permission and wrecked it.
All rise.
Yeah, this is case number 222 on the calendar in the matter of Dawson versus Paul. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. folks have a seat.
Miss Dawson, Miss Paul's son was living with you at a time when he was having some difficulty at home.
That's correct.
You're going to tell me how that came about in a moment. But while he was living with you, he drove your car and he damaged the car. You believe his mother is responsible for the damage that he did to your car. His mother says you should have sent him home when she told you to send him home. That's your defense. Well, there's more to it than that, but we'll get to that in a minute. When did Mrs. Paul's son come to live with you?
It was toward the end of April 2006.
Tell me how that came about.
He just showed up at my house one night, and it was probably...
Is he a friend of one of your children's?
He's a friend of my granddaughter's, Ashley. It was about 11:30 that evening, and he just showed up unexpectedly, told me that he had been put out of his home, he had no place to go. Could he please spend the night with me? I was pretty reluctant, but I said, you know, what happened? And he told me that there was a big fight at home, and he had just been put out.
Did you call his mother?
I didn't.
You should have.
I didn't have his mom's number.
Did you ask him for his mother's number?
You know, actually, I didn't.
Well, but that would have been the right thing to do. How old is he?
He's
17. He was 17, so he's a minor. So before you take a minor's word as to what has happened that causes him to come to your house 11:30, I would just have, for future reference, and for those of you out there in cyberspace, you call the mother and you say, what happened? And he's here. Don't worry about him. If you have no objection, I'll let him spend the night here, but he's safe. So you let him spend the night. Go ahead.
I did, and I immediately called SAC PD, who advised me, and and it was my intention anyway to call CPS. So that's what I did. The emergency CPS worker told me that I would receive a call the following day, and I did receive a call the following day. Explained the circumstances to the CPS worker. She advised me that she would be contacting his mother, and she would get back in touch with me.
Okay, now that was April. Until what date did he live with you?
Sometime in May.
Beginning, middle?
I think it was toward the middle.
So he stayed with you for about 2 weeks?
A little over 2 weeks, maybe about 3.
And had you been in touch with his mother during that period of time?
I had not been in touch with his mother.
At all?
Not at all.
So she never spoke to you directly or indirectly?
Actually, the only time I spoke with her was when we were on a 3-way conversation with an officer from the Missing Persons Bureau in Sacramento.
At that time, did she tell you to send him home?
The officer?
No,
Yeah.
his mother.
Yes, I was always willing to send him home.
No, did she tell you she wanted him home?
She did, I believe, at that time.
Okay. And he did not go home?
I was having a problem getting him out of my house.
Fine. When was the accident with your car?
May 7th.
Tell me about that.
I received a phone call from my daughter. She was moving and she needed help, and she asked us to come over and help her. In fact, I believe she had told Seasson that if he helped, she would pay him like $100.
Is that you?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
And so we were packing and moving things in and out of the truck and going from the old apartment to the new apartment.
So, I understand. Go ahead.
Okay. So, somewhere around 2 in the afternoon, we left the old apartment. We took a load over to the new apartment, dropped everything off. And when I got back to my daughter's, my car had been damaged. I was very upset. Seasson happened to be standing outside at the time, and I said, what happened to my car? And he said, I'm sorry. And I said, what happened to my? I was hysterical. And he said, I'm sorry. And I said, what do you mean you're sorry? He said, I'm sorry, I damaged your car, I wrecked your car.
Where were the keys to the car?
They were in my purse inside the apartment.
You mean you left your pocketbook inside the apartment when you went over to your daughter's house?
Well,
to
we
the new
all
apartment?
did.
So what you're telling me is he went to your purse, took out the keys to your car, and got into your car for some reason?
Yes, he did.
Is that what happened, sir?
No, ma'am.
Want to stand up, tell me what happened? Doesn't sound right to me.
I was helping them move, and when me and Miss Eleanor had pulled back up to the old apartment to add another load of stuff, she needed her car moved so we could move the U-Haul in. So then I asked her, did she need some help? So she handed me the keys, so I got in the car and I backed up too fast into the wall.
Not true.
Did you go into a purse and take out the keys?
No, she handed me the keys when we were inside of the
Had you
U-Haul.
ever driven that car before?
I haven't.
Do you have a driver's license?
I don't.
So why did you get behind the wheel of a car?
Because it was a basic procedure that I thought I could execute, but...
Miss Dawson, this is your problem, madam. Your problem was Miss Paul's son, according to you, was staying with you without permission. He was staying with you in violation of his mother's wishes. According to you, you had trouble getting him out of the house. You shouldn't have let him in the house to begin with until you found out what was going on. Where are you living now?
Back at home.
You're going to follow the rules now?
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me.
What?
Judge, I had met his mother on a previous occasion, and she was extremely hostile toward me. So I felt reluctant about calling her the night that he showed up at my house.
Madam, then you shouldn't have let her son in your home and interfered with business. But you did that already. But now he's been in your home 2 weeks. He is under your control. He is a minor under your control. Let me put it to you this way, Miss Dawson. If you had left your keys in a place where he could get them, and even if he took the keys without your permission, it would still be your responsibility. And if you left the keys in a situation where he could get the keys and he injured himself, you would be responsible for his injuries. He's a minor. His mother's not responsible for his injuries because, according to you, when you had a three-way conversation with the police, his mother said, I want you to send him home.
That was after he had damaged my car.
So you mean after he damaged your car, you continued to let him stay with you?
She was on a cruise at that time.
Just a second. You continued to let him stay with you?
Yes, ma'am.
No, Miss Dawson.
Excuse me, Judge Judy. She was on a cruise. She was out the country.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
This child was living under your control.
How could I be responsible being a good Samaritan? He told me he was being abused.
And later today,
the mother put it out for a garage sale, and she was going to sell it to a stranger. Is that right?
No, ma'am.
Yes, well, I believe that that's true, Miss Bellinger, because I'm looking at your face.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Eleanor Dawson claims 17-year-old Ajon Hart drove her car without permission and wrecked it. Ajon and his mother, Yolanda, claim Eleanor handed him the keys.
You assumed the responsibility for this minor, and you assumed the responsibility of all of his actions when he was with you. You shouldn't have done that, Miss Dawson. And you certainly, understanding that, should not have left your keys, if I believe you, that you left your pocketbook in an apartment that was being emptied and went to another location, if I believe that.
The apartment wasn't totally empty, Judge.
I said that was being emptied.
Okay.
And you left your purse and your valuables in this apartment that was being emptied, that contained the keys, and he took the keys without your permission to go someplace. I don't know if I believe that. But even if it's true, it's still your responsibility.
Judge.
It's your responsibility.
2 times this month, he's taken his mother's car without permission.
Listen to me. That's not my problem. That's his mother's problem, if he's living under her roof. He's living under your roof, and if you know that that's a problem, you're not supposed to leave your keys in a situation. Listen to me. You're not supposed to leave your keys in a situation where a minor can get hold of the keys and take your car without your permission.
Judge Judy, I had no reason not to trust him.
Good.
None.
It doesn't make any difference. Bottom line is, this child was living under your control. You, therefore, are responsible for him, not his mother.
How could I be responsible being a good Samaritan?
Good.
He told me he was being abused, Judge. He had come over...
Miss Dawson, you're not getting it. You don't have a legal leg to stand on because you were standing in lieu of a parent when you assumed that responsibility. And it's your responsibility to see to it that he doesn't do anything wrong and that he doesn't get hurt. If he's hurt while he's living in your home, it's your responsibility, not his mother's. And if he causes damage to property while he's living in your home, especially without his mother's permission, it's your responsibility, Miss Dawson. I know you don't like the answer, but your case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
He was just refusing to go back home. He said he was being abused.
My son being abused, those allegations are unfounded. It is not true.
I did everything I was supposed to do. I called CPS, I called the police.
Like I said, the allegations were unfounded.
It just doesn't pay to be a good Samaritan and try to help people out. It just doesn't pay.
I really am sorry for what I did to Miss Eleanor's car.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Bellinger Nicoletti versus Nicoletti. Step forward.
Cheryl Bellinger and her daughter, Lauren Nicoletti, claim Lauren's grandmother, Louise Nicoletti, owes for the return of Lauren's high school diploma, her baptismal gown, and several savings bonds.
Miss Bellinger, this lady is your former mother-in-law. Was this your former husband?
Yes, ma'am.
And this is your daughter?
Yes, ma'am.
Who is how old?
20.
According to your complaint, I gather when you and your former husband were divorced some 15 years ago, your daughter was in the physical custody of her father, who lived with his mother, so that it was really your grandmother and your father who raised you. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Was your grandmother good to you for the 15 years you lived with her?
Yes.
Did she love you?
Yes.
When did you leave her home?
March of this year.
And why did you leave her home, Lauren?
Because I was sick of being questioned, the 50 questions.
About what?
About who I'm with, where I'm going.
You mean your social life?
Yes.
You felt that they were too intrusive into your social life?
Yes.
While you were living with your father and your grandmother, did you see your mother?
No.
Okay. Now, Lauren, I'm going to ask you to sit down.
Okay.
Okay? It is your claim, Miss Bellinger, that the defendant has property that belongs to your daughter. I assume that the reason you're suing on her behalf is that there is some allegation that she needs some help in certain academic areas. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, during the time that your daughter was with her grandmother, were you under a child support order?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you pay it?
Yes, ma'am.
What was the order?
It was $86 per week.
And you paid every week?
Yes, there were some years that I didn't pay because I wasn't working.
I don't care whether you were working or not. That's not relevant to me. All I want to know is, did you pay every week? And the answer is no, you didn't. And there were years that you didn't pay.
There was approximately 2 years. I had 2 sons that I had given birth to.
2 years is a very long time not to pay child support. Now, this is your complaint on your daughter's behalf. First of all, you say that your former mother-in-law has your daughter's high school diploma. That she is prepared to turn over to her. So, Bird, would you take the high school diploma, please, and give it to Lauren, who wants a high school diploma. Okay, Lauren?
Yes.
Then there is a question of a baptismal gown. How old was your daughter?
She was about 3 months.
Now, why would you want that?
So I could pass it on to my daughter for her children.
You mean give it to Lauren?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Lauren, do you want your baptismal gown?
Yes.
Okay. Should give that to her. And I understand that you're annoyed at the whole thing because the mother put it out for a garage sale.
Yes.
And she was going to sell it to a stranger.
For $5.
For $5. Is that right?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
ma'am.
Yes,
Well, I
it
believe
is,
that that's
Cheryl.
true, Miss Bellinger, because I'm looking at your face, and I believe that that's true, that you were going to sell it, and they retrieved it. At this point, that's important to your daughter. Is that what you want, Lauren? You're going to take care of it?
Yes.
If we give it to you? Okay. Your grandmother is going to give that to you. Okay?
Okay, I will.
Perfect. Now we come to the bigger issue. You say, Miss Bellinger, that over the years, your daughter was given U.S. savings bonds, and you believe thousands and thousands of dollars of U.S. savings bonds. Who gave them to her?
Friends and family when she was baptized and for her first birthday and years beyond that.
How do you know that? Did you give them to her?
No, but I was there during her baptismal and during her first birthday.
How many did you give her?
I didn't give her any.
Okay. Mrs. Nicoletti, how many bonds does Lauren have?
There's 4 here.
May I see them, please? And are those all the bonds she received?
Yes.
May I see them, please? I see 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. 2 are in my social security number, and 1 is in Lauren's social security number.
Do you remember who these were from?
No, I don't. They were gifts.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Lauren, I'm going to ask you to stand up now just for a second. I just have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Tell me why you want your bonds now. There is some $600 worth of bonds. Some of them have accumulated even more interest, not $5,000 worth of bonds. Tell me why you want the money now.
Because I need to get a car to get back and forth to work.
Okay, good. Your grandmother indicated to me that she would love to be able to give this money to you if it was going to be used for you.
It is. It's going to be used so I get a car.
Great. That being the case, Miss Nicoletti, do you have any problem with your granddaughter having these bonds?
She called me a couple of weeks ago and said she wanted the bonds to buy her a car for $300. And I said, you get a car for $300, you're going to have to put a lot of maintenance work into it.
That's true.
And she never answered my question when I asked her if she had a driver's license because her mother was telling her, get off the phone, hang up on her.
Well,
so I don't even know if she has a license.
Lauren, do you have a driver's license?
No, I have a permit from New York.
When do you think that you're going to get your driver's license?
As soon as I get back home.
Would you mind if I did this? Listen to me carefully. Would you mind if I let your grandmother keep these bonds until you get your driver's license?
It's probably going to be like 2 days after I get back.
Perfect. She's going to send them to you. Now, I also think, Miss Bellinger, that since you did not pay child support for years, that instead of having your daughter spend $600 on a car, you ought to buy her a nice car and maybe just use this money as a down payment. Because clearly your former husband and his mother took care of a responsibility that was at least partially yours that you didn't take care of. And now that your daughter's 20 and she's living with you, it would seem to me that you would want to pick up the slack that you hadn't for 15 years and help her buy a car for more than $300 that won't give her any trouble. Do we understand each other?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
She's exactly $7,282.71 behind. And,
In arrears.
In arrears.
Okay. Now, the fact, Miss Bellinger, that you had 2 other children,
Yes, ma'am.
I'll say to you what I would say to any man that stood in your place. You had 2 other children, fully understanding that you had a prior responsibility. Your prior responsibility was this child. And if you chose to have 2 other children, you should have had enough money and resources to support all 3 of your children.
My husband that I was married to when I had my 2 sons refused to let me work.
Then you shouldn't have married him. Then you shouldn't have married him. Just because you are a woman does not separate you from the law. And the law would not permit that as an excuse for a man who decided to get married and have other children and say to his new wife, you can't work, so I can't take care of my first responsibility, and it doesn't relieve you of that responsibility either.
Your Honor?
So, just a second. I don't need any help from you.
Okay.
I don't need any help from you. I'm returning these bonds to you as soon as Lauren mails you a copy of her driver's license. Got it, Lauren?
Yes.
You're going to send her these bonds because that's what she wants to use the money for, to buy a car. But first, she should have a driver's license.
Yes.
You agree?
Yes, I do.
Your Honor.
What?
Can I say something?
Yes.
Lauren can't use my car to get a license because I drive a stick shift. She has to drive an automatic, and this is why she wanted to purchase a car prior
She
to her
cannot
getting
purchase a car without a driver's license, a valid driver's license. And if you think that I am going to permit her to purchase a car in your name because you have a valid driver's license, you're crazy.
I did it.
Give them back to her, please.
I did it for my stepdaughter.
Listen, you may have done it for your stepdaughter, and you may have done it for your 2 sons. You've done very little for your daughter, so I would suggest of the $7,000 that they're not going to see of your back child support, purchase a car for your daughter. That's all.
Parties are excused. They step out.
26-year-old factory worker Bree Berry is suing her ex-boyfriend, 28-year-old waiter John Hayden Jr., for totaling her car. Bree says John is a con artist.
Yeah, this is case number 26 on the calendar in the matter of Berry versus Hayden Jr. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Ms. Berry, Mr. Hayden was your live-in boyfriend until
Yes,
a while
ma'am.
back, and according to your complaint, he took your car without permission one day, drove it. You don't know what happened, but he says he fell asleep at the wheel and he totaled your car. You want the value of that car because you say you were forced to purchase another car, and your monthly payments have, of course, increased as a result of purchasing the new car.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hayden says that he had an agreement with you.
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
right?
Yes.
And that he doesn't owe you anything for the new car. So he's going to tell me all about that agreement in a moment, and I am anxiously awaiting to hear the details of it.
Me too.
Good. We'll all wait together. When did you live with Mr. Hayden, Miss Berry?
I lived with them for about 3 months from at the end of December until about the end of February.
Had you known him for a while before he moved in with you?
We used to go to high school together.
What prompted you to move in together?
I was conned into it. John is a very good con artist.
How were you conned into it?
He figured that we could help each other out by, he didn't have anywhere to stay at that time, and he was working and that he could help me with my bills, and that's not how it happened.
So he moved into your apartment?
Yes, ma'am, just like that. Conned his way right in.
When did he take your car and total it?
It was on February 11th.
Tell me about that, Mr. Hayden.
Well, I did have permission to drive the car. I drove the
Your
car.
Honor.
I had my own set of keys. I drove the car on several occasions. And
Okay, tell me about February 11th, sir.
February 11th, I woke up like I normally did and went to my where I have to go.
Just a sec. Oh, listen to me. February 11th, Judge, I woke up at...
Judge, I woke up...
No, look at me. Here.
I woke up around 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock.
And you got out of bed?
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me.
I don't want to hear you yet. He's talking. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
You got out of?
I got out of bed.
And who was in bed with you? Look at me. Eyes.
The plaintiff.
Are you sure? Don't speak. Remember what day of the week it was, sir?
It was probably around the end of the week.
Are you sure about that?
As sure as I can be.
What do you mean as sure as you can be? Because, Mr. Hayden, I assume you work, right?
I did work until probably 2 weeks ago.
Fine. You were working on February 11th because
yes.
You started to say to me before, I got up my usual time and I was going to do usual things, so I assume you got up 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning because you were going to...
To my rehabilitation.
What kind of rehabilitation, sir? Is not an answer.
Well, I'd rather not go into it.
Well, you have to tell me, sir, what you were doing, because I'm going to ask you specific questions, and I don't give a rat's behind what you prefer not to go into. Put your hand down.
I was going to get my treatment for my methadone.
Okay, so you were going to your methadone program.
Yes.
I've heard that before, sir. You know, I've been a judge for a long time. You have a morning methadone program?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And where had you been the night before, sir?
At home.
All night?
Yes, ma'am.
So you got up 6 or 7 o'clock to go and get your methadone at the program. And you were, in fact, working. So where were you working?
At Uno's Pizzeria on Beachmont Avenue.
What time do they open?
Around 11 o'clock.
What time do you do at your methadone program?
Anywhere between 6 and...
Look at my eyes.
10.
So what were you doing getting up at 6 o'clock, sir, when you didn't have to be at the pizza place until 11?
Because sometimes I go in early so I can get a few extra hours in.
Good. So you were being conscientious.
Yes, I worked 3 doubles a week plus the other days that I worked. I worked 6 days a week. 3 of them were doubles and 3 of them were regular days.
All right. So you got up between 6 and 7. And you had your own set of keys to the car. You got into the car. And what happened, Mr. Hayden?
I was traveling on my way to the clinic, and I fell asleep at the wheel.
Well, according to you, you'd been home the whole night before. Well, how come you fell asleep at the wheel?
Well, not real sure. I've had problems in the past with driving, falling asleep.
How many times in the past have you had problems driving?
Well, I've never actually wrecked from it, but, you know, I've had several close calls.
And when was that?
Years past.
Not when you were with Miss Berry?
No.
Did you ever tell Miss Berry before she gave you permission to use the car according to you and gave you your own set of keys to the car that you've had near misses with falling asleep at the wheel?
I'm sure she was aware.
No, I didn't ask you that question, Mr. Hayden. And I want you to trust me, sir. On your best day, you're not as smart as I am on my worst day. Did you ever tell her that you had near misses of falling asleep at the wheel of a car?
I'm not sure.
Good, that's an answer. Did he ever tell you that?
No, ma'am.
Of course not. Now, was this Miss Berry's only means of transportation, or did she have a garage full of cars?
She had 2 vehicles.
Tell me about the 2 vehicles that she had.
One was a Taurus and the Civic.
And which car were you driving?
The Civic.
Is that the car you were driving, the Taurus?
No, ma'am. That I had a 95 Taurus that had been broken down for a couple months. My only means of transportation was the Honda Civic.
Okay. Miss Berry, tell me about the 10th of February, which was the day before this incident happened.
The 10th of February, ma'am, I was getting tired of being in this little relationship with John because he wasn't working like he said he was. And I had asked him that, you know, pretty soon you need to find somewhere to go. You need to, you know, go live off somebody else. So he had called me from work and asked me to come home so that we could talk about it. And when I got home, about 11 or 12, and John was already drunk and nodding out, because that's one thing that I couldn't stand about him, is that he would always nod out, and he's burnt my furniture on the floor. So anyways, he slept on the couch that night. I slept in the bed. I woke up the next morning. My keys are gone. I always leave my purse next to my bed. I always take my purse everywhere I go. The keys were gone. I got a phone call about 11 from an officer stating that John Hayden was in the hospital, that he had totaled my car. So I called down to the hospital, and John just acted like everything would be all right, that he totaled my car.
So what you're saying is he had driven your car before. There's no question about that. Is that right?
Yes, but he did not have an extra set of keys.
But he had driven your car before, with your permission.
Not with my permission. I would get up in the morning and he would take it.
Well, then what you have to do is you change the locks and you put him out of your house.
That's too much.
But shh. You change the locks, you put him out of your house if he's stealing your car.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You don't do that if you're a responsible parent of a 5-year-old.
She's not a responsible parent.
No, and you're a model citizen.
At least I just use, I don't sell.
And later today,
for her receipts that day, there were 18 meals that there were no drinks charged on.
She said she forgot.
Right, but 180 times, she didn't forget to take her tips home.
Right.
She forgot to charge for sodas.
Maybe she's just lazy.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Bree Berry says ex-boyfriend John Hayden Jr. totaled her car. John says he fell asleep at the wheel on his way to a methadone clinic.
Now there is something that you're going to tell me that would suggest that you had an agreement with her with regard to a new car. So why don't you tell me about that?
After the car was totaled, we agreed that if she was able to get a new car, which she had no job except for about 2 or 3 weeks.
That's a lie.
So
it doesn't matter if I worked or not.
Miss Berry, what part of don't speak don't you understand?
I'm sorry.
When you're on welfare, you can barely...
Oh, my...
I'm not asking you what she did. I'm asking you what your agreement was.
You can barely make your rent anyway. If it wasn't for me co-signing, she could have never got the car to begin with.
My mama...
Miss Berry, if you open your mouth again, I'm going to dismiss your claim. You don't want that, do you?
No.
And I'm serious, you know. I don't say things and then take it back. Do you understand?
I understand.
Well, I want you to tell me the conversation that you had with Miss Berry, sir, with regard to your co-signing a loan for her.
I said, you put down the money you have as a down payment, and then I'll put down what I have, and if they let it go through with both of us being, with me being the co-signer, then you will have your car, and you will go from there.
Did she own the Civic free and clear?
I do not know.
As far as you know, she wasn't making payments because according to you, Miss Berry was on welfare. She could hardly make the rent.
Exactly.
So she wasn't making car payments. So what you're telling me is she took whatever little money she had, and you put in money. And how much money did you put in?
Probably $100.
And you put in $100. And then you co-signed a loan for her so that she could buy a new used car.
Yes.
And how much was the loan for?
About $8,000.
So what you're telling me is because you totaled her car, you obligated her to pay $8,000 for a vehicle to do whatever she had to do. Is that what you're telling me?
No.
Then tell me what you're telling me, Mr. Hayden. I'm listening.
I would have been more than happy to stay there with her and be, and help her make her car payments, but she cheated on me. When I called her before I came home because I couldn't get a hold of her one day, and she said, well, an ex-boyfriend of mine spent the night tonight, and I don't want you to come here trying to cause any problems. Granted, this is where I was living, paying bills, giving her money. I make about $500 or $600 a week, and, I just would give her money.
If you had, sir, $500 or $600 a week, why don't you get your own car?
Because I don't have a license.
So, Mr. Hayden, so you took her car and drove her car without a license?
I didn't know that at the time. I have an $80 reinstatement fee to pay, which I'm going through now.
Mr. Hayden, you got more stories than Damon Runyon. The fact that you tell me that I gave her $100 towards the car, did he give you $100 towards the car?
Ma'am.
No, of course he didn't.
Oh, you're right.
I couldn't even pay.
Of course he didn't.
I had to pay for...
What year car was this?
A 93.
Do you have the blue book value of it?
Yes, ma'am.
May I see it, please?
Would you like to see all the evidence or just that?
I'd like to see whatever you have, Miss Berry.
And I don't live in Section 8.
You move people in and out all the time.
Oh, goodness.
Ooh, this looks like some bad accident. What did you hit?
A telephone pole. And, you know, she didn't call to see if I was okay. She called to see if her car was okay.
That should have told you something,
Yeah,
Mr.
it
Hayden.
did.
Should have.
Yeah, she's self-centered, and karma will get her.
Car was more important than you were.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's the way it's always been with, you know, that's what her psychiatrist tells her.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And later today,
So you look at that face and you see what?
I see charming, sweet, lovely
Yeah.
Amanda.
But when you look at that face, you say she's a thief.
Not looking at the face, but looking at the proof, I believe she's running a little scam on me.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Bree Berry says ex-boyfriend John Hayden Jr. totaled her car. John says he fell asleep at the wheel on his way to a methadone clinic.
Mr. Hayden, let me tell you something. I don't find necessarily that the plaintiff's behavior is appropriate. I am assuming that you are now involved with somebody else?
Yes, ma'am. I was drug use.
No, listen to me. I assume at least in part it was because of somebody else. Part of it may be because of his continued drug use, according to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Whatever. That is not a testament to your good judgment.
It's a bad judgment I made.
No, very bad. And I don't care whether you're exercising bad judgment if you're the only one involved, but you have a 5-year-old child, and you don't move somebody into your house for 1 hour who you claim is getting his methadone, but using in addition to that.
That's why I got rid of him.
Just a second. That's not true, madam, because according to you, after he came out of the hospital, you allowed him to move back into your home for a month, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And you don't do that if you're a responsible parent of a 5-year-old. You understand me?
Yes.
Good.
She's not a responsible parent.
No, and you're a model citizen.
More than her.
Okay.
At least I just use, I don't sell.
That may be, sir, but you still owe her $2,500 for the car. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,500. That's
Parties
all.
are excused.
Step out.
You may step
Bird,
out.
he can have his water later, please.
John Hayden is a good con artist.
I could really care less.
Anybody that John owes money to,
She's wrong.
you should take him on the Judge Judy show
Bree's a liar.
so you can get your money also.
This is over.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of McGinnis versus Carter. Step forward, please.
Restaurant owner Michael McGinnis is suing his former employee, 20-year-old student Amanda Carter, for stealing 180 sodas.
Mr. McGinnis, you own a restaurant, and the defendant was an employee of yours. She worked as a waitress. Your complaint is rather unique, sir. It is your claim that while she was employed by you, when she wrote out checks, she did not charge customers for sodas. According to you, based upon your calculations, approximately 180 sodas were not charged because you believe that it's impossible for people to have ordered that many meals without ordering a drink. And therefore, you claim that Miss Carter stole from you and you want her to reimburse you in the amount of $315, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. When did you start to work for Mr. McGinnis, Miss Carter?
The beginning of December.
And how long did you work for him?
I worked for him for 4 months.
What kind of restaurant is it?
It's a sports bar.
Is this your first job as a waitress?
No, it's not.
How old are you?
I'm 20 years old.
All right. So, Mr. McGinnis, tell me what makes you think that Miss Carter stole from you.
My wife and I, Your Honor, went to a food show. We returned from the food show, and my wife checked receipts. And for her receipts that day, there were 18 meals that there were no drinks charged on.
Okay.
So the day before that, there were no drinks charged that day. But our policy is all meals, you charge drinks. I asked Amanda, why were there no drinks charged on the meals? And her reply was, I forgot.
She forgot to charge them?
She forgot to charge them.
Okay.
But the only thing that the server can get to themselves are sodas, chips and salsa. Everything else they have to order through the screen. But I just can't believe, Your Honor, that individuals are choking down cheeseburgers and nachos and burritos without drinking anything.
Well, she already told you. She said she forgot.
She forgot to charge.
Yeah, that's what she said. She said she forgot.
Right. But 180 times, she didn't forget to take her tips home. She didn't forget to pick up her check.
Right.
She forgot to charge for sodas, time after time.
When you do a check, how is the bill generated?
It's generated without the drink.
So the cost of the food itself comes off the computer.
Yes.
And then the server has to take an additional step before they add up the bill and add on 4 drinks,
Yes.
and then you total it.
Yes, Your Honor.
So she said to you, I forgot.
Yes.
And she's just lazy. Well, what do you think she was doing? You think she was serving these drinks and drinking them all herself?
No, Your Honor. I believe that she was serving the drinks and possibly telling the patron that she was buying the drinks for them in order to get a better tip.
That's a possibility. It's also a possibility she forgot, right?
I don't think so, Your Honor.
It's also, well, it's a possibility. It's just as possible as the scenario that you proposed, that she told all these 18 people on one day, I'm not charging you for drinks, you can add it to my tip, right?
Yes.
It's just as possible as that. You would prefer that I believe she's a thief.
Yes, I believe so.
So you look at that face and you see what?
I see charming, sweet, lovely Amanda, very personable.
No, I'm asking you, but when you look at that face, you say she's a thief.
Well, not looking at the face, but looking at the proof, I believe she's running a little scam on me.
You didn't charge for the drinks, Amanda. How come you didn't charge for the drinks?
I didn't charge for the drinks because they simply weren't ordered. The bar area is first when you come into the restaurant, and many people came into the bar and bought their beer and their mixed drinks and such and purchased them from the bartenders and then made their way into the dining area where there are TVs where people like to come in and watch sports.
All right, but it's also possible, Amanda, that occasionally you let slip by
definitely.
drinks and didn't put it on the bill, right?
Yeah.
So that's a possibility.
Very big possibility, yes.
Do you ever tell people, listen, I'm not going to charge you for the sodas, so you could add it to my tip?
No, I've never done that.
Now, I can understand. You said to me, Amanda served those drinks, and she got the money for it and pocketed the money, and therefore she's a thief. But you're not saying that. You're saying that you choose to believe that instead of being forgetful, stupid, you know, she's a criminal, a thief. She stole money from you. And I don't buy that, Mr. McGinnis. I think that that's a very nasty thing to think about. What is? Are you on medication?
Am I on my medication?
Are you on any medication, sir? I'm wondering why you've got this grin on your face that seemed plastered onto your face. Case is dismissed, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
24-year-old customer service rep LaShonda Lattimore is suing her former neighbor, homemaker Melissa Lorette, for the cost of her son's dental bills and pain and suffering. LaShonda says 6-year-old Jeremy was hit in the mouth with a golf club.
All rise. Quiet in the courtroom. All rise. Now, this is case number 289 on the calendar in the matter of Lattimore versus Lorette. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Miss Lattimore, your claim is that the defendant's son hurt your son with a golf club.
Yes, that's right.
Causing him to have severe damage to his teeth, loss of permanent teeth. And
that's
you want the defendant to be responsible for the medical bills and dental bills for your son.
That's right.
Was the defendant a friend of yours?
She was someone that I knew through a family member. She was also a neighbor where I was living at, but we weren't friends, so to speak.
Okay. Now, what was the date of the injury to your son?
That was December 23rd of 2002.
And was she babysitting for you for hire that day?
Yes, she was.
And what did you pay her?
I'm not sure. I believe I paid her $15 per child because she usually watched my daughter too, but this particular day it was just my son. So when I came home, I should have owed her $15.
And you had paid her before?
Yes, I have.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And how much notice did you give her before you dropped your kids off?
It could have possibly been a couple of days before.
Do you recall?
Yeah, I do recall, and it wasn't that much notice.
How much notice
It was about 10 minutes. She knocked at my door that morning and asked me to watch her children, and I said that I would.
Okay. And you expected to be compensated as you had been in the past?
Yes. Yes.
With money?
Yes.
And how old is your son?
My son is 6 years old.
That's this little boy right here?
Yes, that's right.
What's his name?
Jeremy.
And what's your son's name?
Zachary.
Okay. What time did you bring Jeremy into Miss Lorette?
I had to be to work at about 9, so I'm pretty sure I brought him over at about 8:30.
Correct?
Somewhere, yeah, I don't remember the time, but
Was it a school day?
No, it was during Christmas vacation.
Zachary, step up next to your mom. I read here that you are a golf enthusiast.
Yes.
You remember that day in December when you hurt Jeremy?
Yes, Your Honor.
I want you to tell me what happened.
He walked behind me on mid-swing, and it was a total accident, Your Honor.
Where were you playing?
In my backyard.
Did you tell your mom you were going out to play?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you tell your mom you were going out to play golf?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you say that Jeremy was going with you?
Yes, Your Honor.
What did your mom say?
She said yes.
Said it was okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
And she stayed in the house?
Yes, Your Honor.
What was your mom doing in the house?
She was watching TV, Your Honor.
You remember what she was watching?
I think it was Passions.
He stepped behind you while you were in mid-swing.
Yes.
And you hit him with the golf club in his mouth.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Stand up next to your mom. Jeremy.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me about when you got hit in the mouth with the golf club.
I was standing right next to him. He hit me in the mouth with the golf club.
He didn't mean to hit you. It was an accident. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, when he hit you with the golf club, what happened? Did he take you inside?
No, I
Did you-
went inside myself.
And where did Zachary go?
In the house.
So you both went in together. And did you find his mom?
No, she came and found me.
Where were you?
In the back door.
And what did she do after she found you?
She took me in the bathroom.
And took care of your mouth?
Yes.
What time did you call Miss Lattimore?
Immediately after, Your Honor. He had a bloody nose when he came in. I applied some tissue and pressure to his nose to stop the bleeding, and then I called her at work. And then from there, she came to my house, and I drove them both to the emergency room.
Do you have any evidence that you want me to see?
Yes, I have x-rays here of that also shows that there were 2 teeth missing at the time. So
there were 2 teeth that came out?
Yes.
2 permanent teeth?
No, just one of them were permanent. One of them had already came out and it grew back in. The other one was just growing into the gums, just peeking out, and it was knocked out just like that.
So he's missing a permanent tooth?
Yes, right now he is missing a permanent tooth. The other one has grown back since then.
Well, you're going to have one great tooth at some point, right? One that's going to be better than all the rest.
Yes.
Never give you any trouble.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, Miss Lorette, the facts in the case are really not in dispute. I don't believe that Zachary intentionally hurt Jeremy. I believe it was an accident on his part. So I want you to explain to me why you're not responsible.
Your Honor, as I said, when this happened, I drove them both to the emergency room. I told Miss Lattimore that if she needed anything from me, if she had any medical bills, I would be there. She told myself, she told my children, it's okay, it was an accident, I have Medicaid. I haven't heard from her until recently. I haven't had any phone calls, no visits. I haven't seen any medical bills. You know, she claims that I was so negligent with her children, but yet I watched her children again several times after that. As far as I was concerned, we were friends after that. Her children were at my home the day of my son's birthday party.
So what do you think happened? Well, maybe I'll ask you, Miss Lattimore, what happened?
Okay, I haven't spoken with her since that happened, and common sense would...
Just a second, your children haven't stayed with her since that happened?
No. No, Your Honor, they have not been with her since then. Immediately after this happened, not too long after that, she moved. And then the only phone number that I had listed for her, I had to look her up in the phone book, and that was disconnected. And from what I understand, I was told through word of mouth that she had moved to Lake Worth. She doesn't live in Lake Worth. She lives in a completely different place from there.
How did you find her?
How did I find her? The person that was there because the story that they told you is not completely true altogether, first of all. When I came there after work, he was laying in the lap of my best friend that lives a couple of houses down. That's who had him. And that's who told me, because they were already friends. That's who told me where to find Melissa at.
Okay.
Can I say something, Your Honor?
Yeah, sure.
My question is, why did she wait so long to try to find me? Her neighbor that she was living with at the time works with my husband. She always knew how to get a hold of me because she knew how to get a hold of my husband. I lived in the same residence until the middle of February of that year. She was at my home on January 22nd or 23rd because I took her children with me when out shopping for party favors for my daughter's party. Her daughter got caught stealing when she was with me. She did something I didn't approve of.
Just a second, is that, just a second.
I did not.
Just so that you...
She's right. My daughter has been over her house since then for a birthday party when she went with her, and she did get caught stealing. You are absolutely right.
Okay. I watched her kids a few times after that.
But there's still something that I'd like to...
And then I cut ties with her because she did something in my home that I absolutely didn't approve of.
Okay.
Would you like me to reply?
I lived at that Lake Worth...
Just a second. You want to reply? I'm listening.
The reason I have not contacted you, first of all, like I said... The reason I have not contacted her, like I said, because from what I understood, she moved. Okay, second of all, the reason I did not contact her, because at first, when this was being done, I didn't know that was a permanent tooth that had come out. I didn't know until he had constantly been going back to the dentist, and I'm sitting around just waiting and waiting and waiting for this tooth to grow back, and it never did. So finally, I asked the dentist, I'm like, well, when is this tooth? Because the other one did. You see, I assumed that it was going to grow back too. I'm like, well, when is this tooth coming back? I said, I'm sorry, sweetheart, that was permanent. It's not going to grow back.
Right.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And later today,
we heard something, so we stopped. I asked, what did he just say to you? And she never got to answer because somebody's kicking my car. I'm like, what are you doing? He's still kicking my car.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. LaShonda Lattimore says 11-year-old Zachary Backett knocked out her son's teeth with a golf club. Zachary says it was an accident.
Miss Lorette, you are responsible because you assumed the care of her 6-year-old child, and you had no business being inside watching Passions when your son was outside and had in his possession something that could cause physical injury. So if you sent him outside and said to him, be careful, that may be okay if he's your neighbor and it just happens to come by, but you assumed the responsibility for hire of providing care for her child, which means that if you're letting your son go outside with a racket, a bat, something else, you cannot rely on a 10 or an 11-year-old to watch a 6-year-old. That's your job. So, let me see the bills that you have, please. Bottom line is, when you assume the care of somebody else's child, whether you do it for money or not, it's your responsibility. You're almost an insurer of that child's safety. And if you don't want to be an insurer of that child's safety, you do not accept that responsibility. You don't accept that responsibility and watch soap operas.
Can I say something, Your Honor?
Yeah, sure.
I wasn't watching Passions that day. I was heading out the back door when this one came in screaming.
Well,
he went over
you
to
were
the
in
next
fact
door.
you were in fact inside.
Right. He went over to the next door neighbor's yard and grabbed a golf ball to bring over to play with Zachary. I told both of those boys what the safety rules were. You don't stand behind each other. You don't walk up behind each other.
I believe that you did that. Just a minute. I believe that. Let us assume that you did that.
Right.
That's not sufficient.
Right.
You have to be out there. You know, I have whole gaggle of grandchildren, and they love to play golf. And when they come to my house, I have little, all different size golf clubs for them to play with. And my grandchildren range in age, the golf players, from 2 to 10. Mm-hmm. They're never unsupervised. I wouldn't think of saying to the 10-year-old, listen, I want you to go outside and be careful of Mia, and be careful of Jacob, and be careful of Kobe, and be careful of Alexi, because they might walk behind you.
Right.
A parent is always out there. I'm always out there. My husband is always out there. Sometimes two of us, depending upon how many kids there are out there playing golf, to make sure that nobody walks behind the golf club. So, how much of these bills was covered by Medicaid?
Medicaid, those are the bills that are not covered by Medicaid. Okay. They're not.
Okay. Bills are at least $4,500. $33.24 and $11.82. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. The $500 that I'm awarding you in addition to the medical bills is for his pain and suffering and aggravation. You should have been more careful. You too. That's all. Step out.
All right, is that excused? You may step out.
I don't believe that the boy intentionally just took the golf club and hit him in the mouth.
Was an accident?
He was standing right in front of him, and he didn't ask him to move.
The child walked up behind my son while he was in mid-swing with the golf club?
A common sense would tell any child, whether it was a 6-year-old or an 11-year-old, move.
I put too much trust in the children, and I understand that.
Judge Judy, I watch your show all the time. We love you and thank you.
I learned my lesson. What can I say?
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Pena versus Carreri, step forward, please.
22-year-old customer service rep Udelka Pena is suing carpenter Dominic Carreri for kicking her car in a drunken rage. Dominic is denying the charge.
Ms. Pena, it is your claim that Mr. Carreri kicked your car.
Yes.
And you didn't know him before?
No.
You're driving down a street late at night. What time?
Must have been around 12:30, 1 o'clock.
And where were you coming from?
I was picking up my cousin from her friend's house.
Where had you been?
I had been at my boyfriend's house.
What kind of car were you driving?
A Saturn, 1991.
Who else was in the car?
My cousin Maribel.
How fast were you going?
20, 25.
Think again.
Yeah, it was 20.
20 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Unlikely. And why don't you tell me what happened?
Well, as I was going down the street, we encountered some people in the middle of the road. They appeared to be drunk. I started beeping the horn at them.
Just a minute. What do you mean you encountered some people in the middle of the road that appeared to be drunk?
They were kind of swaying, and they were just bunched out in the middle of the street. And we started beeping the horn for them to get out of the way. Nothing happened.
Just a minute. You're driving 20 miles an hour, and you see a group of people. Mm-hmm. How many people?
4 or 5.
And are they in the middle of the block, the end of the block?
They're like in the middle of the road.
Just standing in the middle of the road?
Yeah.
Now, when you first saw them, how far away from them were you?
Maybe from
I want to say the end of the courtroom to about over there.
Over where?
Over by the flags.
So probably 30 feet away?
Yeah.
And you first saw them, you were 30 feet away. Your lights are on.
Mm-hmm.
Did you stop the car?
No, I beeped the horn for them to get out.
Why did you do that?
So that they would get out of the way.
Okay. But they didn't move, according to what I've read.
No.
So how close did you get to them?
About where you are and about right there. The end of the
Right
table.
where?
The end of the table.
So maybe 10 feet away.
Yep.
So you stopped your car when you were 10 feet away from them.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you do?
I let them by.
What do you mean you let them by?
They decided to cross.
And then what happened?
They started screaming something. I don't know why. My cousin told them to get out of the middle of the road. You're drunk.
Okay. And then what happened?
And then they got out. They were still screaming something at us. We continued to go. I must have went 5 feet or so, and we heard something. So we stopped. When we stopped, I asked, "What did he just say to you?" And she never got to answer because somebody's kicking my car. I get out of the car. I'm standing by the door, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's still kicking my car. So that's when I flagged an officer who was at a stop sign, and that's when he stopped kicking my car.
Do you have pictures of the car?
Yes, I do.
Let me see pictures of the car. And a police report, please.
I have a police report, too.
Okay. I'd like to hear your version of the events, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Myself, my wife, and 2 other friends were crossing the street in a crosswalk, and I looked up to my right, and there was a car coming down the road pretty fast. So we started to slow down because it was sleeting out at the time.
You mean the weather was bad?
Yes, it was sleeting out.
Is that right?
No. The weather was not bad, and they weren't at a crosswalk.
I didn't ask crosswalk. I asked about the weather.
No, the weather was not bad.
It was sleeting out that night.
Go ahead.
Anyway, as we started to come up, she started sounding her horn. We kept crossing a little bit further because she was probably about 50 yards away when we first started from the sidewalk crossing the street. And she came to a sliding stop, and just as she slid just past us a little bit, I smacked the back of her bumper and screamed at her, said, "Hey, why don't you watch where you're going?"
I know exactly what you did.
I never actually made it across the street, and we actually kept walking afterwards and went back the other side. The police officer was sitting right across the street and saw the whole thing.
No, the police officer didn't see the whole thing, sir. But I have your statement and I have her statement. Police officer took both of your version of the events, and you acknowledged kicking her car, right? So I know exactly what happened. She was driving too fast. The weather was bad. She didn't wait for you to cross the street. You had the right of way. You got frustrated because she almost hit you. She acknowledges she almost hit you because she said she stopped 10 feet away. 10 feet away is an insufficient amount of time to stop at night. Whether the roads were slick or not, I don't know. You say that they were. She doesn't know. Certainly it's not enough time. She had no reason to start honking at you from 30 feet away, which is where she was when she first saw you, so you got frustrated. Fair?
Fair.
And the police officer said to both of you, he said to you, pedestrians have the right of way. You stop your car and you let them go. And he said to you, you're not allowed to put your hands on somebody else's property, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So now I'm going to see what you estimate the damage to be to this 1991 Saturn.
I went and took an estimate of it.
Yes.
And this is what they gave me.
Mm-hmm. What?
Just wanted to say that where I smacked the car, it was on the left side. This is something on the opposite side of the car. I even told the officer, I says, yeah, I did smack the bottom of her bumper when she came by us, but if I broke a piece off the car like she said I did, the piece would be laying right there on the ground. You know, where's the piece of the car that's missing?
Unfortunately, when you have a temper and you hit somebody's car, it's very difficult for somebody else to figure out whether the damage that was done to the car was there before. If you're dumb enough to vandalize somebody else's property, I mean, what you do is you back off, you call a police officer, you say this car was driving in a reckless manner, I want to file a complaint. You get a license plate and you do that, you know. You hurt yourself by behaving badly and by showing your temper. However, I do find, Ms. Pena, that you are partially responsible for his bad temper, because I have been there and I have seen people driving in a reckless manner, and while I don't excuse what he did, I find that what he did was mitigated by the fact that you were driving at an excessive rate of speed, which caused you not to be able to stop within a reasonable period of time. 10 feet is not reasonable when there are 4 or 5 people crossing the street. You had no right to start honking your horn from 30 feet away or 40 feet away. They had the right of way. As soon as they put their foot in the middle of the street, they had the right of way. Do you understand?
Yes, I understand.
Good. Very good. So I hope that you can get your bumper fixed for $250 because that is all you're going to get. Thank you very much. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
27-year-old designer Rachel Cook is suing ex-boyfriend, car customizer Dan Mock, for household items they purchased over the 4 years they lived together.
Yeah, this is case number 367 on the calendar, the matter of Cook versus Mock. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have seats, please.
Ms. Cook, it is your claim that the defendant kept some property that is rightfully yours after you broke up. You were in a long-term relationship, about 4 years, and lived together for all that time?
Correct.
Mr. Mock says you got whatever you're going to get.
Yes.
So, when did you move in together and when did you leave?
We got together August 7th, 1999.
And when did you separate?
We broke up September 17th. I moved out October 1st.
What arrangements did you make with Mr. Mock about the division of property?
Well, him and my brother both loaded the items that we discussed as I was loading the truck that he said that I could have. I had taken one of the dressers and two of the nightstands for the bedroom set, and that was fine. And he said that, you know, his stuff was still in the one dresser and that, you know, as soon as he replaced it, he would deliver that item to my mother's house. The steamer and the vacuum cleaner, he wanted to clean the carpets and stuff before I took those. There was a blow-up pool for my son, and then also...
Did you have a child living with you?
Correct.
But this was not the child of this relationship. It was,
no.
How old is your son?
My son's 8 years old.
What items did you take with you?
I got one of the freezers, the washer and dryer. He said it wasn't a problem to take the washer and dryer. He was just going to replace them anyways.
Don't tell me. You're editorializing.
Sorry.
You got a freezer? Had you bought that freezer?
The freezer was given to us by his ex-sister-in-law.
Okay. So the answer is you did not buy the freezer?
No.
Did you buy the washer and dryer?
I bought the washer. The dryer was his brother's.
What else did you take?
As far as furniture?
Bedroom furniture. Who purchased it?
We purchased it together.
So you both paid for it?
Correct.
Is that right?
I paid for it.
All the furniture, all the bedroom furniture?
Yes.
Is that right?
No, that's incorrect. Both our money went into a joint account for the 4 years that we were together. We opened an account in March of 2000.
And you were employed?
Correct. I haven't been employed other than 3 weeks the entire time we've been together.
So when you say that you paid for it by check?
I actually paid for it by cash. What I would typically do would be to deposit a certain amount of my check into the joint account, and then I would keep a certain amount for myself or whatever.
For cash?
For cash.
Well, that's okay. That's the way you set up your finances, so that you didn't pay for it. It was paid for from joint money. Okay. What is it that you want now?
All I want is the items that on the day that I moved out and we loaded the truck, we discussed the electric skillet and we purchased off eBay that had not arrived yet.
Do you have a list of those things?
Yes, I do.
Let me see it, please.
Do I? They are right there.
Ms. Cook, don't be nervous. I only eat litigants on Thursday.
Sorry.
She wants a vanity-style dresser. Do you have that?
That is, yes, the dresser part of that bedroom set.
Okay. You have any problem giving her that?
Yes.
Why?
Out of the bedroom, I've kept that dresser. She's taken the bed, she's taken the nightstand, she's
so you want the dresser?
Oh, yeah, I would like to at least have a dresser.
You can have it. It's yours. It's his. You took the bed, you took the other dresser, now he's got that. That's it. Period. Listen, when two people are married and they live together, they have courts to decide about the division of property.
Correct.
When two people decide to live together and do a test run, we don't have courts for test runs. You two people put money in a joint bank account, which means that all the things that were purchased, according to you, except the stuff that was given by his family, was purchased from the joint account. You took most of the bedroom furniture. He wants the dresser. He's got it. I'm the judge. Period. End of discussion. Over. Don't respond. Next. Steam cleaner.
The steam cleaner at the beginning of summer, I had given her the money to go to town to buy.
Don't tell me you gave her the money. So you both put money in the joint account. It's not your money. Did you tell her that she could have the steam cleaner?
No.
Okay.
I'd like to interject. My mother was there the day that he said that he would deliver all these items to my mother's house. My brother called.
He changed his mind.
But the day that he was served with papers...
In order to have a contract, you have to have an offer and acceptance, and there has to be some consideration. What was the consideration for him giving you all the property?
I didn't ask for any of the vehicles that were purchased. I didn't ask for reimbursement for any of the money for his mortgage payments. I didn't ask for reimbursement.
You don't get... let me explain something. You don't get reimbursement for money for his mortgage payments because you and your child were living there.
What about the $1,100 that's still owed on my mother's Lowe's account for items that are permanently part of that house? I couldn't take my garden window.
Let me explain something to you, my dear. You do not invest money in a home unless you're married.
Oh, I know that now.
Well, if you watched regularly, you would have known it before. You do not invest money in a house.
I thought that when he said that he would do something, that he was actually maybe for the first time going to do it.
Okay. Did you purchase an electric skillet on your account?
Yes.
Who paid for it?
I did.
Show me. Prove it.
I cannot prove it.
That's too bad. She gets the skillet. $400.
How much, ma'am?
Skillet? How much was the skillet?
This is the actual payment. We purchased it on eBay. This is the replacement
Just a second. Who's we? I thought you said you purchased it.
I purchased it. I paid for it. I purchased the...
From where did you get the money?
We bought it off eBay.
Not we. Where did you get the money? Where did you get the money?
I paid for it out of my paycheck after we split up.
Well, show me.
It's right there.
Okay, good. Is this what you showed me, $36?
Yes, but the replacement cost, I want the skillet.
It was purchased on September 8th. This was before you broke up.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. I guess that I had that date wrong. But it was, I went in and paid for it.
I mean, it's sort of interesting that you say that the skillet is worth $400 and you
That's the replacement cost if I were to have to go buy it.
Oh, well, you don't get that, madam.
I want the skillet.
But you don't get that. You were living together. Correct. I told you, you have a problem. Your problem is things that were purchased from a joint account. Okay. Courts don't do that anymore. I mean, if I'm looking at any item here that looks as if, for instance, I have a small child's desk. Whose is that?
That is hers.
Where is it?
It is at her house.
No, it is not.
Her brother returned it for me.
You're the brother?
Who is that?
Step up.
Yes,
You're Miss Cook's brother?
yes, I am.
You brought the child's desk where?
Over to where she is living at her mother's house. It is sitting on the front porch.
You don't get along with your sister, I assume?
No, not really.
Okay. What about an inflatable swimming pool?
The inflatable swimming pool. I'm sorry, ma'am, for laughing. It is at my house. It is in the garbage trailer. It was a $15...
It was $30.
Okay, it was a $30 inflatable pool that sat out in the sun all summer.
Well, if she wants to come over and get it, leave it out 5 days from today. If she wants to come and pick it up, she's going to pick it up.
Gladly.
Okay?
Yes.
Because that you don't sit in that, do you?
No.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You're being petty. I don't know why.
It's items that he said I could have. And he said in front of my mother that I could have, and the day they were served, they were going to deliver.
And later today,
the two of you believe that Mr. Gelhar owes you for mental distress. And Mr. Gelhar says that you aggravated him into an ulcer. Oh, everybody's in Never Never Land here.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Rachel Cook claims former lover Dan Mock will not return her things. Dan says she should move on with her life.
Miss Cook, my sense is that you're being pretty petty. Most of these things are not worth a lot of money. They have no sentimental value.
They do to me.
No, a swimming pool that you bought for $30 that is plastic doesn't have sentimental value.
No, but when we didn't have it, when we unloaded, my son cried. He wanted his desk, he wanted certain items.
Miss Cook, I can't tell you that you don't have the desk. Your brother says that the desk is on the porch in your house.
It was not there when we left.
Check again. My sense is that Mr. Mock is not lying to me. It seems to me that when you left, you took an awful lot of stuff with you. You loaded it in a truck.
But I also...
not going... You want more?
I paid for stuff into that house as well. And I feel that
Your problem is you feel as if because you invested money in a house that was not yours, that you can't take out of the house, you should be able to get the things that you can take out of the house.
But I didn't take everything that you can take out of there. I didn't take the desk. I told him he could have the computer desk that I paid for. Good. I didn't take the surround sound system, which, great, I have a big screen TV that he was kind enough to let me have that has no internal speaker. So without a sound system, it's pretty much worthless.
You mean you can't watch television on it?
You can watch television on it, but you can't hear it.
Well, you go get a little speaker and plug it in.
But, I mean, that's the thing. I didn't take... We had two
You're being
surround
petty.
systems.
I don't know why, but this stuff here that you have here is nonsense. I mean, it's really nonsense.
But it's items that he said I could have. And he said in front of my mother that I could have, and the day they were served, they were going to deliver.
Listen to me. I'm not listening to your mother.
Okay.
Is there anything on her wish list that you feel as if you can part with?
Ma'am.
Just to answer my question,
No,
sir. Nothing. It's all important to you.
Yes, ma'am.
It's all important to you. It's the only vacuum cleaner in your house?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
No, there's one out in the storage unit.
Is there another vacuum cleaner in the storage unit?
There may be. If there is, she's welcome.
And he has a new
Just
dresser.
shh. So you would have no objection to going to look and seeing if there is another vacuum cleaner that you might want to give her?
Yes, ma'am.
So I want you to do that. If you find it, you put it on the curb with the swimming pool.
Will do.
Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Have a happy life. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
The real reason we were here was because I have a new girlfriend.
If he feels that I'm being petty and jealous over his convicted felon girlfriend, I'm really sorry, but she's not half the woman I am.
She's angry. She's upset.
He cheated on me, whether he wants to feel that he cheated on me or not.
She just can't. She can't let go.
I still love him. But you know what? I'm not in love with him. As far as I'm concerned, he is worse than scum.
She's just one of those people that is just never going to let go until she finally finds someone and moves on with her life.
I am back together with somebody extremely important in my life.
That's what she needs.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Hoisington Mayak versus Gelhard. Step forward, please.
Musician Tori Mayak and his fiancée, 22-year-old business student Michelle Hoisington, are suing computer accounts manager William Gelhard for rent, bills, and death threats. William is countersuing for an ulcer caused by their death threats.
Whose last name is Hoisington? You're the girlfriend?
Yes.
And this is your home?
Yes, ma'am.
Yours and or your mother's?
Yes, it's in my mother's name, ma'am.
So it's your mother's home?
Yes.
You live there?
Yes.
The two of you believe that Mr. Gelhard owes you for security deposits, some rent, some utilities, and a whole lot of aggravation that you categorize as mental distress.
Most definitely, Your Honor.
And Mr. Gelhard says he owes you for nothing, but that you aggravated him into an ulcer, and he wants $5,000 for the ulcer. Right?
Correct.
Oh, everybody's in Never Never Land here. Mr. Gelhard, I'm going to deal with your mental distress first.
Okay.
You moved into their home, and you claimed that because they were such terrible people, they were involved in fighting and drugs and everything else, you developed an ulcer.
Yes, it did.
And that's your counterclaim.
Yes, it is.
Let's take care of it right now.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Forget it. If you don't like where you're living, you move.
Right.
Right? You weren't sentenced there. You weren't under house arrest. Nobody put a chain link fence on your foot and told you you had to stay in the house. They were aggravating you, you leave.
Exactly.
Okay, good. So, counterclaim over. Perfect. Now, next. This house is in your mother's name.
Correct.
Were you renting it from your mother?
I was living there with my mother and my auntie and my sister. They all had to move back to Wisconsin, where I'm originally from, for a family emergency. The landlord agreed to let us take over the lease, so we did at that time.
So this is a leased house?
Yes, correct.
And originally the lease was in your mother's name?
This is correct, yes.
Is it still in your mother's name?
Yes, this is correct.
So it's your mother's security deposit?
This is correct.
Now, who was he a friend of?
Your Honor, this man was a lifelong friend of mine. I've known him since, okay.
Good. He's a friend of yours.
Right.
Now, as far as I can gather here, he needed a place to stay because he was coming out of drug rehab.
He was homeless. He showed up at my doorstep with basically
Had
two
you been
glad
in
bags
any
full of his
rehab
possessions.
programs?
Was
Never in any rehab
His
program.
girlfriend had kicked him out of his house, Your Honor. He showed up at my doorstep.
So he was homeless?
Yes, I was doing a good Samaritan deed, letting him live at my house.
Everybody wants to talk. When you say you took him in, what arrangement did you make with him as far as rent? Did you make any, or did your mother make it?
While he was living there with my mother, he was to pay $500 a month, which included phone, food, all utilities, and rent.
You were paying his mother $500 a month?
Yep.
Starting when?
Starting the day I moved in.
Which was when?
Which was about 8, 9 months ago. I don't know. I can't remember.
What day?
February 2nd, Your Honor. He showed up at my door with two glad bags.
2203. He was paying $500. And how many months did you pay the $500?
Up until
June,
August.
Your Honor, when my mother moved back to Wisconsin due to a family illness.
Okay. When did she move back?
She moved on June 1st, Your Honor. She was gone.
Now, on June 1st, did you negotiate different terms with him?
Yes, Your Honor.
Why?
because my mom wanted us to reimburse her for the security deposit over $3,500 down. And we all agreed to it. We all agreed to that, Your
They
Honor.
discussed it with me.
And he agreed to it.
But the fact was, she was like, it's just like putting money in the bank and you'll get it when the lease is up, word for word.
And?
And I said, you know, I personally would not mind paying whatever I have to pay, but once things started breaking in the house and what have you, and my clothes got sold because I wasn't there, that, to me, ended any kind of verbal agreement we had.
So what rent does he owe you, sir?
Right now, he owes me for the month of October, plus he didn't pay it to me, so there's an $83.10 late fee.
Just a minute. You left me in June. Did he pay rent in July?
Oh, yeah, he paid rent for June, July, August, September.
And how much did he pay?
After my mom left, he paid $350 a month.
Okay. October, were you living there, sir?
No, I was out by September.
Was he there in October?
No.
Then he doesn't have to pay rent. So it's just October rent?
October rent plus the late fee plus all the money for a security deposit.
He doesn't owe you any money for security deposit, sir. You think he's going to come after you when you're finished living in that house a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, and say, can I have my $1,200 back? And you're going to give him his $1,200 back?
Yes, I would have.
It's not going to happen.
Well, not now. He hasn't given me any money.
Absolutely right. When you have property, in order to have a valid contract, it has to be in writing.
I've known this man for 20 years since I was in the 9th grade.
So what are you doing here, Mr. Mayak? I don't understand what you're doing here.
Well, I have a close to $2,700 claim against this guy.
You don't have a $2,700 claim, sir. He doesn't have to pay you security deposit. He's not there. You don't even claim in your paperwork that he caused any damage to the property from the time he was living there until the day he moved out, which would suggest that he would be liable for any damage. However, after he moved out, it's possible that you were going to cause a great deal of damage, which means he'd be out of his security deposit 3 years from now. Why should he do that? That's stupid.
Your Honor, he also owes me...
you would agree that that would be stupid.
I'll agree with that.
Good. You would also agree, sir, that since you didn't have a lease, he is nowhere obligated to give you 30 days' notice if he's going to move out. So he left before October 1st, so he doesn't owe you for October's rent. And he was paid through September.
Your Honor, this man is a pathological liar.
You just told me that!
When his lips are moving, I know he's lying.
Mr. Mayak, I am not a pathological liar, sir.
I'm not saying you are, Your Honor.
You just told me he paid you rent through September, and what he didn't pay was October, and he didn't give you a 30-day notice. And I just told you he wasn't living there in October. He doesn't have to pay rent. You say he's a pathological liar.
Your Honor, he gave me a verbal agreement and a contract saying that he would give me a 1-month notice. He would be out on November 1st.
You can't have a contract for real estate unless it's in writing. I don't know what you think, Mr. Mayak. I mean, he's just as far out as you are. He wants $5,000 because he said you aggravated him when he was there. As ludicrous as your lawsuit. Listen to me. What utilities does he owe you for?
He owes me for $172.69 for the month of July, August, and September. I have the utility bills here with me.
Okay, that's what they say. Did you pay utilities during those months?
I paid my utilities, but as I went to Phoenix the first time and came back, Tori goes, look, I needed money, so I pawned some of your clothes and I pawned some stuff.
What did he pawn?
He pawned an $80 jacket and like 3 other dress shirts that I have.
No.
Just a minute. Did you tell him that you sold any of this property?
Your Honor, he had promised me on a payday that he was going to give me $50.
Towards utilities?
Yes, and he did not come through for that.
So what did you do?
At that time, I went into his room searching for anything that I could use to pay that bill or else my utilities were going to be turned off.
And so what did you find, sir?
I found a jacket and I got $10 for it.
Well, then consider that your utilities. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Yeah.
Tại sao nên du học Anh ngành kiến trúc? Thì lịch sử và di tích kiến trúc tại đất nước Anh là một trong những cái quốc gia mà có lịch sử kiến trúc phát triển lâu dài nhất trên thế giới, với các cái kiến trúc lịch sử như là các cái công trình về kiến trúc Gothic, Georgian và Victorian. Thì du học tại Anh sẽ cung cấp cho chúng ta một cái cơ hội nắm vững cái kiến thức và hiểu biết sâu sắc về cái lịch sử cũng như là cái di sản kiến trúc của thế giới. Về cái chất lượng giáo dục thì nước Anh có một trong những cái hệ thống giáo dục hàng đầu trên thế giới với các trường đại học và các cái viện nghiên cứu cực kỳ là uy tín. Các cái chương trình đào tạo trong cái ngành kiến trúc được thiết kế để kết hợp giữa lý thuyết cũng như là thực hành, và với việc đó thì sẽ giúp các bạn sinh viên sẽ phát triển cái kỹ năng cần thiết cho cái sự nghiệp trong cái lĩnh vực này, và sẽ có cái cơ hội học hỏi. Thì du học ở Anh sẽ mang lại cái cơ hội học hỏi từ các cái chuyên gia hàng đầu trong cái ngành kiến trúc, cũng như là sẽ được trải nghiệm cái văn hóa cũng như là cái ý tưởng sáng tạo đa dạng từ các bạn sinh viên và các bạn giảng viên đến từ khắp nơi trên thế giới. Và về cái mạng lưới nghề nghiệp thì Anh là một trong những cái trung tâm kinh tế và tài chính hàng đầu trên thế giới, với rất là nhiều cái cơ hội nghề nghiệp trong cái lĩnh vực kiến trúc, cũng như là các cái mối quan hệ và kết nối mạng lưới xây dựng. Trong cái thời gian du học thì sẽ giúp chúng ta là tìm kiếm được cái cơ hội việc làm, cũng như là sẽ phát triển cho cái sự nghiệp sau khi mà chúng ta tốt nghiệp.